Gage, we are live. Hello, everybody.
Oh. Hi, stream.
Hi.
Happy Monday.
Happiest
Very
of
rare
Mondays.
you get to say that.
It's quite literally a happy Monday today because of our guest.
I get the reference. I make that joke all the time and people hate me for it.
Well, it's fresh around here because this is your first time on our stream, so we can make all the same jokes that are probably very tired over in your neck of the internet.
Yeah.
You'll regret it by the end of this, I promise you. Thank you for having me today, though.
Oh, it's our pleasure.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us. Yeah, we're not going to start this with Mr. Happy here. We get to say Mr. Happy is here.
That's true. That's mind-blowing to me.
What other extremely groaner jokes can we make? I think that's about it. I mean, let's see. I feel like when you're a guest on other podcasts, I've only seen your quasi appearance, by the way. So I actually don't know if this is true or not. I bet everybody makes like the groaner of like, "Are you happy today, Mr. Happy?" I bet that's up in the mix.
Yeah, that's definitely a tippy top one. Are you always happy? Are you happy today? And I'm just like, I'm happy every day.
It's one of those.
Big groaner.
We can hit you with like the actual legitimate question. Why Mr. Happy? Where'd the handle come from?
There's no good origin story behind it.
None whatsoever. It wasn't like your AIM screen name.
No. Well, I mean, no, my AIM screen name was Devil May Cry.
Sweet. Nice.
That's my second favorite franchise of all time. It's just straight up. Yeah. But no, mine was literally like, I was at a friend's house. He had like some alien shooter game and we had to put in names for high scores. And I didn't know what to put because I didn't really have a handle. And so I was there doing Spanish homework and we were blowing it off, of course. And one of the things was we had to write Mr. Happy Monkey, Señor Feliz Mono. And I just took Señor Feliz, made it Mr. Happy and rolled with it from there. That was it.
Yeah, that's natural. I like that. That's a good origin story.
That is all right. That is freaking all right.
I left the monkey part out though. I was like, I don't need that. That's extra on the end.
Monkeys were pretty funny. What year would that been? High school sounds like. So monkeys were funny. People like monkeys. It would have been okay, I guess.
I'm interested that because now what year? Because you were like, what year? And I was like, is he about to try to guess what year I was in high school?
Nah, I'm not good at that sort of thing.
I think we're about the same age, I would assume.
So?
I assume anyone who plays MMOs is just,
there's a bracket
millennial.
of time. Yeah. There's like some sort of window. Though it did make reading old Reddit threads about you rather amusing because, the phrase, I like Mr. Happy, he's a pretty chill guy, just with that name in general, it gives me a chuckle. It works for me.
You read the good threads.
Oh, yeah, all the good threads. Yeah. Actually, I didn't read a single bad thread, to be perfectly honest. Almost all of them were like, is there drama with Mr. And then someone would be like, what the hell is going on in here? And then would give a very rather boring description of what actually happened 6 years ago. So congratulations. Your drama did not thrill me, sir.
It's video game drama. Like at worst, it's like, oh, well, that's okay.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, 6 years. A lot has changed in 6 years. I mean, streamer drama has gotten like so much juicier.
There's so
and
much production value now. It's just not the same as it was.
Yeah. Do you know how many wives you need to cheat on to like move the needle on?
It's exponential
on streamer drama.
You know what? How about I don't find out?
Yeah, I like that plan. That's a good plan.
Intro plan. We'll start there and see where it goes. Yeah,
exactly. So for the audio only listeners out there who are probably like, are they still doing cold opens? What's going? Yes, we are. Hi everyone, Garrett and Kyle here. We're here with Mr. Happy today, and this all came about because we had a wonderful dinner together.
Yes.
After the Final Fantasy XIV media tour, and if you're one of our less Final Fantasy XIV inclined listeners, that was a thing we got to go on like a month ago now, maybe 2 months. I don't know. We had to sit on it for so long for embargo. I don't remember when it happened. But yeah, we went out to dinner afterwards with some folks we knew and some folks we didn't know, which included you. Happy. We had never talked before. It was one of the rare occasions where internet content creators got to meet for the first time in person, as opposed to like consuming a ton of each other's like YouTube videos or streams.
Yeah, and it's funny because I obviously knew that you guys were running the podcast. I knew what you guys were doing, but I'm actually, it might surprise you, I'm very disconnected from Final Fantasy content creation, other than the fact that I make content for it. Because
Same.
Yes.
Yeah.
It seems natural. I think it's how you have what's called that rare thing, the work-life balance. You finish work and you stop working, and that's where you find the balance.
Yeah. I was watching a video the other day, and my recommendeds came up at the end, and it was like top 10 scenes from Fresh Prince and like Michael Jackson's Thriller. And it's like, everyone's like, what are your recommendeds? And I'm like, well, they're not Final Fantasy, I'll tell you that. Like, it was like a scene from The Blacklist or something.
Okay. All right. I want to do this now.
Ooh.
Everybody fire up your YouTube.
Okay.
And make sure you're on your personal account. Not, well, I guess, Happy, you probably just use your upload account, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
Kyle and Mason's
my top recommended is this.
Oh,
Mine
nice.
too. Yeah.
Mine too. And then it's Wristwatch Revival, Good Mythical Morning, Donut Media, and James Hoffman.
Spencer Reed season 6 being hilarious from Criminal Minds is the first one that pops up.
So you like cable TV clips.
You know what it is? When I'm unwinding for the day, I don't want something that I haven't seen a lot, because it demands a lot of my attention. Like, so when like I go to sleep, if I'm going to put on a show, I'm not going to put on a show I haven't seen before. I'm going to put on something I've seen a million times, so I don't feel like I need to stay up and watch it. I just need the noise. And it's kind of the same with my YouTube. I've seen all of Criminal Minds, so I could just throw it on in the back, and I don't really need to pay much attention to it. It's just kind of there.
Yeah. Oh, that's why I do the isekais, because it's like, oh no, another world. How'd this? I'm just out. Don't need information. By the way, mine is a review of Battleship, that fabulous movie. What was that? 2013? Earlier?
I like that movie.
The one with one of the Skarsgård brothers?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say that's one of the worst movies I've ever seen.
Oh yeah,
you know.
no, absolutely.
No, I enjoy it. It's one of those. This is so awful, I'm entertained.
Yeah, like
movies.
what was it, 2012? Like like world destruction movies. Moon blows up. Moonfall, was it? The moon fell. And it was full of
who did Independence Day, because that's that director's only good movie.
Yes,
Roland Emmerich.
Yeah, the Emmerich,
like a Roland
the
Emmerich
business.
movie. They're awful except for ID4.
The Rogue. Well, no, Godzilla's okay.
Godzilla's
okay.
great.
Yeah.
Godzilla is just Independence Day again with a lizard instead of aliens. Like,
But it's way better than Independence Day.
and Apache helicopters instead of jets. Like,
And it's still way
similar.
better than Independence
Still nothing
Day.
better, nothing better than that Independence Day scene when they just fly up and just, we're gonna make contact, and they just like flash lights at the alien spacecraft to see what'll happen. Oh, good stuff.
I like it.
Oh, that's wonderful. This is what we're going to start doing. I think we just came up with a new thing for the show. Every time we have a guest on, we're going to be like, okay, open up your YouTube recommendations.
Let's learn something about each other.
Instead of talking about content creation and Final Fantasy 14, I would rather talk about everything else you're into that you never get a chance to talk about. Happy, is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Cool.
I'm absolutely okay with that. I've got nothing to hide, so.
Well, you just got into Elden Ring. Were you doing the Yoshi P challenge or something? You were done.
Got
quick.
into it. Oh, yeah, you have no idea how into Elden Ring I was. Just got into it. Oh,
Well,
man.
I mean, I just mean the speed of which you seem to defeat said game and move on. You know.
Yeah. I've beaten Elden Ring like 15 times prior to the DLC coming out with like all different builds and like crowd controls and randomizers and everything. So when the DLC came out, I was like, this is pretty easy.
Nice.
Everyone's like, what's the difficulty so much? And I'm like, oh, that was pretty easy. That was fun. I was content with it. You know, it wasn't unbelievable.
Okay.
Good time.
All right.
Good time.
Well, now I want like spoiler-free impressions of Dawntrail. Same style.
Same style. Well, so to be clear, with Dawntrail, the way I handle expansion releases most of the time, Endwalker was the only exception to this, is I blast through the story, skipping everything. And then on a second character, I actually watch everything. I read it all. I voice all the characters if they're not voiced in scenes. And so I'm still playing through the story right now. I'm about at the level 95 point, so it's approximately halfway. And so my impressions early on are I love character building and I love world building. And there's a lot of that. So spoiler free, that's as most as I really want to say. I'm probably going to be in the liked it camp. It's a bit divisive at this point between a lot of people, but it definitely more appeals to me.
I'm kind of curious about that as a relative newcomer to Final Fantasy 14. Is it always divisive out the gate? Because when I was new to it, when I was new to this game in general, I felt like I would be drawn and quartered if I said anything even remotely critical about the game. So I just felt it gave me an impression that it was just beloved, and that was kind of it. Now that I'm current for I'm heading into an expansion for the first time ever as like a current player. Like when Endwalker was releasing, I was not even halfway through 2.0. So it wasn't even a little on my radar. So to me, then the almost 3-year journey I've been on with like catching up, I'm like, is this new? Is it new that it's divisive, or is it always divisive? And over time, the people that didn't like it, they got it out of their system in the first month, and we don't talk about it anymore.
So actually, kind of right there at the end, it's always divisive. Every decision every MMO makes is divisive, though. You know what I mean? Like everyone who wants to be a part of the conversation has an opinion. That's fair and reasonable. Just a lot of people are not great at expressing it in a way that allows discussion. So it's very at your throat style, crazy, especially close to expansion launch. What ends up happening and the whole, if you say anything bad about it, you'll be criticized, is there's something that I, as a longtime creator, like to call emotional vampirism.
Yeah.
And it's essentially somebody wanting to absorb the emotions they want from you out of you. They're like, you need to have this experience so that I can feel that same thing again. And if you don't match that, it's like, oh, and there are a lot more. There's not emotional vampirism for things people don't like nearly as much as things people do like. Like people who are angry are like, yeah, be angry. They're like people who love it don't want, oh, please love it.
Yeah, I think I really only exist for Star Wars fans. I think beyond that, like you need to at least make the not liking it entertaining, like a Mystery Science Theater or a Red Letter Media. If you want folks to want to watch your reaction to something that is maybe not great, but yeah, I don't know. Well, that and Roland Emmerich keeps making movies, so what do I know? What do I know?
It's gonna keep coming up the whole show, isn't it?
Maybe they stopped. But and so I was going through your YouTube. I went back in time 11 years ago. Found you playing SimCity. Nice. Awesome.
Not the
even
one
the first
everyone's
video
thinking of either. It's that bad, like the most recent SimCity.
11 years ago, recent. Yeah. I mean, that's still correct. Yeah.
Well, that's what they did, such a bad job that they murdered the franchise for more than a decade.
Yeah. Yep. That's correct. And the best part about it was getting Mass Effect 3 for free.
Oh, that's right.
Apology game.
That was such they gave apology freebies. I forgot about that.
That was the Origin business, right? Where I own a couple of games now and is now.
I think I got an older Dragon Age that I still to this day have never played.
Wonderful.
Probably
apology.
Inquisition then, I'd imagine.
That's the one.
No,
I
know
there.
I bought Inquisition because that's the only
okay.
Dragon Age I have played. I think I got whatever the preview with Dragon Age 2.
Yeah,
probably. But
well, just play before Veilguard, the Veilguard. It's a new one.
Yeah, the new Veilguard coming out. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. We'll see. We'll see about that. I don't know about that. But the show, long ago, 3 years ago, used to be a MOBA show about the Blizzard Entertainment Heroes of the Storm. And I see on here League of Legends. You got some League of Legends gameplay on here. I see 40-minute matches. Nice. So what's the pipeline there? There's a little bit of just like, I'm just gonna play. It's the Let's Play era. I'm not really like, oh wow, what was the business choice of?
There was none yet because it wasn't a business.
Exactly. But you made it through kind of this just like Let's Play, and then all of a sudden, and perhaps through archaeology, internet archaeology, you have a 14K, a Realm Reborn informational week 1. So something happened that made you go, Smite game. Oh, I'll play some Smite. Oh, I'll play some League of Legends. And then, I'm going to just like lay a flag, weekly Final Fantasy 14 content.
So got to back up a little further for that.
Ooh, excellent.
When I was 13, I was introduced to a wonderful PlayStation 2 MMORPG by the name of Final Fantasy XI.
Oh, you're one of those.
Yeah. I got it. I got a fat PS2 with a hard drive in the back, and I stayed up till 6 a.m. installing it. The day that I got it, I remember it very vividly because I was tracking time by watching Rush Hour 2 over and over again. It was just my movie of choice. I just watched Rush Hour 2 over and over again. I was like, okay, 2 hours have passed. Looks at timer. 2 more times I can watch this movie, and then it'll be done. Yeah.
I think I used to do that with the first Kill Bill.
Yeah.
It would just over and over again.
Yeah. So then 6 a.m. rolled around. I started playing, and true story, I got banned in Final Fantasy. Well, I'm sorry, I didn't get banned. I almost got banned in Final Fantasy 11 with my very first character because I was.
How do you know if you almost get banned? Like, did someone?
I had to delete the character.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
I thought I was being a clever 13-year-old, and I named my character I Did Your Mom, and that's apparently against terms of service. IDIDUR Mom. All one letter. And the GM was like, that you're not allowed to do that. And I'm like, I didn't know I couldn't do that. They're like, can you please change your name? I was like, nice. Yes.
You George Costanza, the GM, you're just like, is that frowned upon? I didn't know I wasn't allowed to do that.
Nice.
Yeah, I didn't know I wasn't allowed to do that. Yeah. So then of course I went with my backup, MrHappy, which I already had at that point.
In the pocket. It's perfect. Yeah.
That is such a 180 going
nice.
from
Garrett, did you have one? Do you have one?
That I almost got banned for?
Well, I was Al Capone, spelled Al Cap-one.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
No. I've been a Green Day reference since vanilla World of Warcraft because American Idiot was big when I started playing WoW. So no, I've had a bunch of hunters and paladins named Saint Jimmy. So yeah, and none of that carried over to 14 because I didn't think I was gonna like 14. So I named it after my favorite stupid Fast and the Furious meme, and now I have a Warrior of Light that I absolutely adore called Tuna No Crust. So. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. Kyle, now I'm curious, Kyle, were you ever almost banned or were you banned for anything in a game? Adult sprays and the original Counter-Strike.
I modded my Tauren Druid to not look like ass. And that was against the terms of service.
It was?
Like, install custom skins into World of Warcraft.
I didn't know that was against the EULA.
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't think they cared.
Yeah.
I thought they were just like, go nuts. Oh.
Because it wasn't a modding file. It was their art I was messing with.
I was on an arena team in WoW that the creator of got banned. I did not name it, but he named the I think it was a 2v2 team named the Twin Towers Should Have Bubbled. And he got banned for 3 months.
Smooth.
Yeah.
Teens, man.
That I don't talk to that guy much anymore.
Yeah. Probably smart.
Yeah. I gotta give credit to Blizzard because I legitimately had nothing to do with it. I just a friend asked me, "Hey, you want a 2v2?" And I was like, "Yeah," and that was the name. And I remember at the time thinking, I'll give you points because it's a 2v2, but other than that, this is a little
rough.
That's a bit much there, friend. And then I didn't see him in game for 3 months. So
you had the pipeline of Final Fantasy 11. You're breaking the EULA, but you're okay. MrHappy comes online, and you saw 14 coming in the background, or And
yeah, so 1.0, the disaster that it was, they were kind of thinking 11 needed to be replaced, Square Enix. So 1.0 was built on the principle of moving players from 11 to 14. And so they made a lot of the same. That's why a lot of the races look the same. There's a lot of terminology that's saved over, but I mean, the game was just an absolute disaster. But being an 11 player, of course, you know, I've played 11 for all those years. I had to start with 1.0. And on August 27th of 2010, 1.0 released. I skipped class that day to go pick up my collector's edition of 1.0, which, funny thing, came with a mail-in birth certificate for one of the 3 starting city-states for your character names.
What?
oh,
Yeah,
What-
they gave you a website, like a one-time use website to put in your character's name and birthday, and they would mail you a like an Ul'dah birth certificate.
Oh, I thought you filled out a birth certificate and mailed it to them. Okay, so
No.
other direction. I'm like, why? Why would you do that? Okay, never mind. I mean, it's still that is still a really bizarre keepsake in the like. I have gotten so much game swag in my life that's up there.
A birth certificate's not on the list.
That is weird. Yeah. That's
I wonder if I could take that to the DMV, use it as like a point of identification. Feel like it says here you're from Ul'dah.
If that isn't your next video on your channel, like hidden camera style, like I brought my Final Fantasy 14 birth certificate to the DMV and here's what happened, like that better be your next video.
I don't have the courage to do that. I don't think I could, because I'd have to go back there for like a real appointment at some point, you know? They'd be like, that's the guy.
What? I'm so confused how that even works into like you played 1.0. Wait, this is 1.0, right? That you're playing?
This is
Okay.
1.0s. Yeah. And then it was a disaster. I was one of the first level 50s in the game, which in 1.0 was something, to say the least. For those who don't know, in 1.0, you didn't level up your jobs by killing monsters. You had a character level and you had a job level or a class level, because we didn't even have jobs at that point. It was only like gladiator, thaumaturge. There was no black mage or anything. And every time you used a skill on an opponent, your class had a chance of getting experience points based on the level difference. So you could kill like 20 enemies and never get any experience points off of them just on RNG alone. And so it took 2 months to get to level 50 because of that, with a full group of 8 playing 12 hours a day in college. So that was a wild time in my life, to say the least. Yeah. There's a reason it's not around anymore.
Yeah, I've heard so many legends about it. And I remember I had a friend in high school who was like obsessed with Final Fantasy 11. Like every time I saw him in class, that's all he wanted to talk about. But what he talked about doing didn't change very often. So I got the sense that the game was very one note, very grindy.
Well, it's not even that. It's they just kind of released. It didn't even work on most PCs because it was way too graphically intense and resource intensive. B, they didn't really come up with a content release schedule because, of course, they didn't. They just expected whatever they did to work, kind of. And then Yoshi P took over, and they had to split resources between making 1.0 a playable game and making 2.0 at the same time. So, no, they really didn't do it. Pretty much, they would release a single new activity. It would be like, imagine if Ifrit hard mode was the only thing you got in a patch, essentially.
Yeah, that wouldn't be wonderful.
But was it randomized? Like, did it feel like the patch just come out of nowhere, or
kind of actually? Yeah.
Okay,
a little bit.
I mean, that can generate news if people are playing. Also, the MMO news cycle wasn't exactly as it is today back then.
Well, it depends on the game, right? Like, because we came to 14 with like a WoW brain, and I love how predictable 14's patch cycle is. Like, I absolutely adore it, because you're coming from World of Warcraft. Like, yeah, it's kind of predictable depending on the expansion, depending on if they're going to tell you what's happening ahead of time or not, and also depending on if they actually hit their schedule. But then you also get into long periods of World of Warcraft endgame where they're just jack happens for upwards of a year and change. So
Someone remembers Siege of Orgrimmar very well.
Guess when I took the biggest break from World of Warcraft before Shadowlands? It was then. Yeah, it was like I love that. It's like Mist was great, but I didn't end with a very positive feeling about it because I was playing daily, and eventually you just get bored because you run out of things to do. Because the end of Mist, there was nothing for over a year. Honestly, the end of Wrath was kind of similar. They dropped Ruby Sanctum, but that was like a drop in an ocean in terms of content.
I remember that. Yeah, I pugged a lot of Ruby Sanctum to copium my way till Cataclysm.
Yeah. So that was a selling point for me when Kyle, you were trying to like get me interested in 14. Was just like, hey man, they put out stuff at a regular clip. You know how many patches there'll be per expansion. And to me as a WoW player and remembering getting like 1.5 patches in Draenor, and one of them was like a selfie mode. It was like, oh man, that sounds great.
It's a double-edged sword. You know, it's an interesting one because as a content creator, it's like, excellent. I'm going to pace myself out. I'm going to make this, and this, and then we'll have this thing. And as an audience, it's predictable. It's understandable. But you are missing out on that hope aspect, which I think fuels a lot of MMO news creation, which is maybe this is the path. Maybe tomorrow I wake up and they fix my job. Like everything's different. Just it drops out of nowhere. You know, I'm going to stay highly invested in this thing I'm very frustrated with, just in case at any point everything changes.
That is an interesting point.
That was definitely what I was used. I mean, especially because going from 1.0 into 2.0, I mean, that was kind of where I just seized said opportunity. Because like so there's videos I think that aren't on my channel anymore from like way back. Because I used to like put my like computer, like my laptop screen, like up to a TV screen and just record it like that because I didn't have any capture devices.
Oh, so man, like that is so wholesome.
Yeah. So like I had like Kingdom Hearts 2, like final mix, like imported, like no damage boss fights on there. And I had like Final Fantasy 11 solos and stuff all recorded on that same way. But then all those are gone. And the SimCity thing is pretty much the first thing you end up with when you look. I think there might be some Minecraft on there still somewhere too. And like League of Legends and a couple of other things that are from way back when.
So if you're doing 11 stuff, I'm assuming, because like I don't know your full history. You know, I've looked you up a little bit, but were you making 1.0 content?
No, I was still in college at the time, and then I started working in New York. And while I was in New York, I started getting closer to the space. It was around the time where like Owned.tv came out, and then Justin had just released Twitch. So like for example, I was watching a lot of League of Legends. Dyrus would have been the first streamer I think I would have watched long term. So at that point, it kind of just even crossed my mind in the first place. Like I'd always kind of wanted to do videos and do streaming and stuff like that. But like it just wasn't, the technology wasn't like widely accessible. And I didn't like have the money to like get into early streaming, you know? So it was just like, I just started making videos while I was working in IT because I was bored.
Okay.
That's how it goes in IT, yeah.
Yeah. Like when I started working in IT, my first assignment was to watch all of the IT crowd before I was even allowed to take on an assignment from my manager. So
wait, legitimately?
Yeah, he said you have to watch the whole thing. It was like I won't give you any work until you watch the whole thing.
Sounds kind of chill. I love that show.
Yeah, it's a great show. The British version, of course, not the eventual American version.
I didn't know they did an American version.
No. Yeah, that doesn't sound
They released
right.
like I think the pilot, and they never did anything after that.
God, yeah,
with the American version.
That sounds terrible. I would see the Office panned out, but I feel like that's the exception, not the rule. I feel like.
Yeah, that's kind of This definitely wasn't the case with the IT crowd. No.
Yeah. Oh, that's freaking great. That's not a bad prerequisite.
No. And then so I started doing the information because I was like, no one's making content on this. Like I was really invested in the idea of 2.0. You know, we had already seen the posts, the plans, the ideas, and I was just like, nobody's talking about it yet, so I'll talk about it. So timing was good, but honestly, what I actually attribute to probably the biggest, I guess, fuel on the fire, I was doing charity work with Save the Children. And I was doing streams for them on another channel. And through that channel, people wanted to know who I was. So I got my YouTube to 1,000 subscribers like that. And that's when you can start monetizing it. And I had just lost my job in New York because Vodafone bought out the company and got rid of 2/3 of the employees. Of course they did. Yeah. No surprises there, huh? So yeah, startups being acquired, always a fun time.
Yeah. That back to those YouTube recommendations. You may have noticed I watch a lot of car content, and the biggest channels right now are imploding because they were purchased, and just being all the money is going to the installed CEOs that shareholders put in power, and so it's interesting over in that YouTube space right now. But,
oh boy,
yeah, this is like what we talked about when we had dinner at Media Tour. We courtesy of Jesse, who was like keeping the conversation going as if he was hosting a podcast, but no one had recording devices on them. We every single one of us were talking about how we started in this, and there was definitely a running theme of losing jobs or never getting jobs in the first place.
Yeah, pretty much. And I was young, out of college with a lot of debt, so I was just like, well, I have nothing else going on, so I might as well make YouTube videos. Now I can even make money doing it. And I guess at that point, the rest is history. My first real stream in Final Fantasy content was a couple months later. And then I was partnered by May of the following year. And it's been full time for over 10 years now.
So that would have been post 2.0?
Yes. I think I was in 2.1 when I was partnered on Twitch.
Nice, man. That's a long time ago at this point.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, you were in the early days of Twitch.tv. I still remember when that was a new thing, and probably the worst take I've ever, like the wrongest take I've ever had. Everyone thinks the wrongest take I've ever had is that I wasn't going to play Final Fantasy 14. That's what everybody memes on. But I remember Twitch coming out and thinking, no one's going to want to watch people play video games. Like, why would I watch someone play a game when I could just go play the game myself? And how wrong was I?
But podcasting, that's for people who are busy and in cars and can't play videos. Clearly, everyone would just play video game. I did the same thing, too. I didn't want to be on video all the time. I love picking my nose too much. It was a problem, but we're doing okay now.
You're just digging for gold. You were trying to find the riches up there. That's fine.
I see, like, there's this definitely, like, window on your YouTube channel where like you did all the 101 job guides, and that seems like that was kind of a back-to-back like 20K at minimum views. Actually, we can make big deductions. Let's just do the internet thing and say nobody likes Conjurer, no one liked that in 1 or 2.0. So that was the real bummer class. But so now we can kind of go back, now that we have that history, now that we've kind of seen your through point, even heard some World of Warcraft in there. This is just pretty much par for the course. A new expansion comes out. There's some grumbles about it. You've been through this actually one more time than most now. So Dawntrail seems okay. Seems like it's going okay.
Dawntrail is definitely the best release we've had in a while. Dawntrail was under kind of 2 extra levels of scrutiny that it needed to face. So we've had good expansion launches before. Heavensward and Shadowbringers are both smooth, whereas A Realm Reborn and Stormblood and Endwalker were not. Endwalker was the first expansion under, I think, a major popularity light that got blasted by its poor launch. So Dawntrail needed to be the yin to the yang of that one and be good, or it would have been an extra large disaster. So the fact that they had some issues, Xbox version barely working, crashing every like 30 minutes, definitely not ideal. A few other blunders with some bugs in game. And obviously people have their ups and downs about their job changes, but overall smoothness has been really good. Environments, encounters, and music, of course. Like the overall impression has been really positive. It's been a good launch. It's been a good time. And it's a good time to be in a positive headspace about 14.
I'm glad to hear that, because we barely scratched the surface, and I guess probably should have led with this disclaimer. So if you're worried about spoilers, we're not doing any Dawntrail spoilers today. If we get into any other 14 story spoilers, we'll shove them in the end of the show, but I'm not even sure conversation will head that direction today. So don't worry about that. Also, it seems like none of us sitting here have actually experienced the Dawntrail story, so we can't really spoil it.
Yeah, and then if I want to talk about something later on, I just won't use its name. Like EX2, it's like extreme trials. We usually refer to them by like a numerical number, EX1, EX2, final MSQ dungeon, some generic kind of holdover.
How's the difficulty actually on some of that stuff?
I might be the worst person to ask because I played for as much as I have, so I'm a bit skewed. I don't think the difficulty is necessarily any higher, but I think the way that all the encounters interact with their surroundings is more engaging.
Okay.
Which
I like that.
It makes it so that even if you know how the game works, you get more of those like, I died because I didn't know what it did kind of moments. So as a longtime player looking for a challenge, that's a little more exciting than I saw a stack marker or a spread marker or a line AoE to dodge. Like so that extra level of engagement takes what is not necessarily something that's more difficult and makes it a little bit more fun, at least for now, until we get used to it. If they start following patterns and then it becomes just another thing that's part of the norm, but that's to be seen.
Okay.
That's something they said they were very interested in, that they felt like the game had become too predictable visually and they wanted to diversify that. So you're definitely feeling that on your end.
Yes. Well and above. And I actually think they didn't do that poor of a job with that in Endwalker. I can think of a lot of really creative visual encounters that they made, stuff that's very fight specific, even if in the end it functions like everything else. But there's definitely a different bar being set here with the frequency of it. My camera is just as much a part of the boss fight because I need to be able to look over there, or look back there and see something. And then the boss is doing something. So it's like, I feel like I'm just more engaged than just, the boss is doing this thing. I'll move slightly to the left because I've done it a million times, How
you feeling on well, let's just go one at a time so we don't, throw the whole kitchen sink at you. But how you feeling on the Viper?
So I was one of the people less thrilled about Viper to begin with. I felt like it lacked a real job identity. It was like I swing two swords really quick and I put them together sometimes, and that was kind of its entire identity.
I mean, that's the fantasy for some. Like there are those who want two swords, and that's I tell you, this is great. Yeah, kind of business. Love it.
And with that, I think it did a good job. I think it's more defined by its gameplay than its aesthetics, which I think are not very unique, not very interesting. But the gameplay itself is fun and fast. Now we know they're making adjustments to it already because apparently it's too busy for a lot of people. They're removing some positional requirements from things and adjusting some other skills, but we're still very much in the dark about what that actually means. So my initial impressions are not for me, but I definitely see the value in the experience it brings versus other jobs, which is a good thing. You want different experiences. That matters more than the job aesthetics and the identity. It's the experience that matters a little bit more.
Well, that's the perfect one to go into the next one, where the aesthetic is really a big deal for many. The Pictomancer. How you feeling on that?
Picto's a beast. Absolute monster. Tearing. It's ruining everyone else's perception of every other job in the game.
Okay, that tracks. That's a MOBA usual.
That's not that usual for 14. Like 14 normally has a pretty strong introduction for jobs nowadays. Way back when, it actually had really, like when Ninja came out, it had a really positive track record, but like all the Heavensward jobs were like universally hated upon release, and Stormblood Samurai really struggled, and Red Mage was only kind of okay. But from Shadowbringers on, even without being overpowered, they've all had a pretty good initial impression. Like Dancer wasn't overpowered when it came out, but it had a really good impact on the game. Gunbreaker, on the other hand, pretty strong when it came out. And Reaper, everyone thought was strong, but as more people played it, they're like, oh no, like it's just it's on par, maybe a little below. Like now that everyone's more experienced with everything, so it's in a good spot. But no, Picto is like, it was fine at Media Tour, and now they've gone too far. They've gone way too far.
I'm having a lot of fun being able to just fire off like historical questions with you, because I only have roughly 3 years of experience, and none of that has been spent at endgame, so I haven't been in an endgame headspace. We've just been doing catch up. Now I forgot where I was going with this. Oh, what in your mind? Because obviously it's your experience. Like, can't speak for everybody, but I would love you to try. What is the expectation from long-term 14 players when a new job comes? Do you feel the community as a whole kind of generally puts? Do they care more about actual like power, or do they care more about the theme? Do they care more about it feeling unique compared to other jobs?
I think that's mixed. I think that's you'd expect that's mixed. People may see it visually and decide that they want to try it. And then they might stick with it. They might not because of the gameplay. Some people may not pick it up because they think it looks silly and, not for them. And then they find out it's strong and now they got to learn it. I would say there's no one dominant factor for that. But I think Picto's relative strength compared to its competitors is pulling a lot more people in right now than its aesthetics necessarily.
It's got to be exciting for some, though. I mean, you've been Black Mage for how many years, and all of a sudden, hey, can you play this brand new thing? And that's probably selling point.
Black Mages aren't as thrilled about it.
No, I've heard they've got an identity. They want to stand in their circles, and they don't want to shoot big art. That's not their jam. But as a business, and we saw this throughout, usually like around like 2014, it's like every single MOBA, this would be like League of Legends, Dota, Here's the Storm. They all went, oh my goodness, we need to stop releasing balanced characters. We need to make sure they're actually rocking so people will buy them. So do you feel like the game has kind of just been like, let's leave them a little overtuned, and so everyone has a good time on release?
No, because again, I don't think so. Like, I'll give it going back to the Reaper example. Everyone thought it was strong. The only nerf it received was to its healing, which its barrier was like it had its healing cut in half when its barrier was broken, and that was all they ever nerfed about it. And then every other job, even before the other jobs received buffs, they started picking up. And that seems to be kind of the place where people expect it to go. They expect the early adopters to make it look way stronger than it is, because there's a high volume of people playing it and producing opinions on it versus the other jobs. But the expectation is that it's in line with the other jobs in its own role once everything levels out.
What does balance look like historically? Because I know, like, they've already in Mediator, they were already talking about like expect a bunch of job stuff in 8.0. Like, they're already, from what I experienced, talking about years down the road. But what has it been like historically as someone who's played, obviously since 1.0, but let's just talk about modern Final Fantasy 14. Let's just use the Black Mage isn't doing as much damage as Pictomancer as an example. Do you expect them to adjust that between now and the next expansion, or do they tend to sit on things for a long period of time and try not, and they don't do a lot of micro tweaks?
So they do micro tweaks, but they definitely still sit on those tweaks too long relative to the feedback they're getting. Okay. Great example of this is definitely we never get like a blast balance patch because something happened, unless it's like detrimental to the state of the game. We are getting balance updates on the 16th. We are getting them on the 30th, for example, this month. After that, it's like every 4 months is like an average expect. Okay. And sometimes they'll hold off the whole expansion. Be like, we'll put that in the next expansion one. Okay, great example of that. Dark Knight. So in Endwalker, going into Endwalker, the whole of Shadowbringers, Dark Knight had a problem with Blood Weapon, where it was very ping reliant. It was very clunky to try to make sure you got all the uses out of it, because it just lasted 10 seconds. And if you didn't get all of your hits in that 10 seconds, you were screwed. Like, it was just such a downgrade. And then going into Endwalker, they didn't change it. And everyone had been talking about it all expansion. It was something that was super expected. And the same way could also be said about Machinist in 6.0, which they still waited even longer to change. And I even asked at a Mediator, I was like, yeah, Dark Knights are wondering why all these other jobs got the same adjustment but Dark Knight just didn't. They were like, well, not every job needs to be the same. And I'm just like, yeah, but they've tasted what it's like to have the good version of this, where it's just like 5 charges and your ping doesn't matter and being they've tasted it, right?
Yeah.
And sure enough, like, and then they still waited another like 4 months after Endwalker's release. So it was like almost 3 years of that one piece of feedback just not getting through.
Jeez.
And yeah.
Yeah, I would find that frustrating. As someone who currently mostly just played Stark Knight.
Machinist was kind of the same. I asked the same thing. I was like, why is Machinist why they have ping issues, so why has hypercharge not been adjusted? Because hypercharge is like, if your ping isn't like sub 50, it's like awful to play.
So why is
you
that?
need to be living close to this? So essentially it makes your abilities only be 1.5 seconds between each of them. There's an innate delay before you can use a skill, after you use any skill, of about half a second on top of your regular ping. So what ends up happening is you have to weave one ability in between each of these skills. And if your ping is like 80 to 100 even, then your next skill, it gets kind of clipped. Like, you know, you go to press it, but it's still waiting for the animation of the previous skill to end. So it just like delays itself. And that affects a lot of people playing Machinist. And I said that to Yoshi Phil. I was like, yeah, one of the most common complaints about Machinist is how, like, if you don't have really low ping, how awkward it is to play. And when I got the answer, we've never seen that feedback, I was shocked, because I was like, every Machinist talks about this on the forums, on Reddit, in YouTube video. How could you not see that? I couldn't understand how it was like something that flew that far under the radar for, again, literally years. And it's still the same way now. They've just made it so that if you clip, you're not at risk of losing an ability use, which was the problem before.
Interesting. Huh. Yeah, because that's where my brain, like, from covering other games, goes to, like, you know, like, I wonder what their goal is. It seems like their goal is they're not particularly interested in like true parity balance between every job in the game.
They're pretty close to it, but they just don't address complaints about job design fast enough. I think the balance is one thing, and I think they have their own idea of where they want jobs that not everyone agrees with. Summoner is a big one, where Summoner is just kind of always, you play it because it's really easy and because you can learn a fight, but then as soon as you know a fight, you just don't play it anymore. Like if you're a caster. Same with Red Mage, kind of. And they seem to be okay with that being the case with them, so they just kind of leave them where they are, and it's not great for the average player. Because then they get the trickle-down effect of the, like, people who play the game too much saying things about it, and then people who don't really know what to do with that information kind of enforce that on everyone else because they don't understand why it's that way. They just repeat what, like, content creators say.
So I mean, that's a general problem, I think, with just meta knowledge across any game is when it's out there and you can just go look up the answer. Like, not everyone understands why that is the answer. Like, why is it important that it works that way? But
so in the example you just gave, there is pressure from players to not play Summoner because it's perceived as not as high of a performer because you could be doing more in some other job. So get good, advance your job.
Yeah, it's like if you need a raise, like Red Mage or Summoner tends to be the pick, or if you just want to, like, force your way through a fight. But people have become a lot more receptive to not having the caster raise nowadays. And in the really high-end groups, almost every caster will swap to Black Mage or now Picto to make sure that all of us know the fight. If we live in the fight, we need to make sure that we can kill the boss. So having the higher damage is going to be more important than being able to make up for a mistake. Don't make the mistake, because we're competing on a high level here.
Okay, so not that this is topical or anything like that, but let's say someone was to do a dungeon with no healers, and that was to trickle through the economy of the conversation. There could be people forcing, well, we don't need healers anymore conversations to happen.
Kyle, why would you even bring that up?
Because I find it fascinating.
I've been under a lot of fire for making jokes about that whole situation.
Well, I'm a healer, so I think I get a little bit of leeway in nobody's perfect. You're all making mistakes. You still need me. But when everyone's perfect, I'll hang up my cards and I'll apologize. You played so wonderfully. You won't ever need me. I'll switch to something else.
I like to imagine a magician coming home, hangs up his like coat, his hat, and his cards.
Just because everybody learned how magic was done.
Presses the button, the astral globe just falls to the ground and in 5 pieces. You know, it's a real distraught motion.
There's so much magic in the world already. I'm not needed.
Nope.
And just go home and
That
hang up
sounds-
your top hat.
That's inspirational. That sounds wonderful, actually.
Yeah, honest. Yeah.
No
yeah,
more
now
trickery.
I want to know more about this fiction. Like, why? What's the inciting incident? Why are the magicians on strike?
I've fooled too many children in my time, dear.
No, but the healer thing has been not that big a deal. Like the people have been kind of appreciative of healers now this expansion so far anyway. So it's like that whole situation never really unfolded.
I enjoy your de-escalate attitude a lot, and that is why I want to ask
I
you.
know. I was not de-escalating. Trust me. You haven't heard the other things I've had to say about it.
Well, on this fine show. But if one wanted to raid, what would you say the scene is like?
I'm trying to think of a really good analogy because there's a lot of different facets to raiding. There's the average experience and there's the static experience. The average experience is you go into Party Finder, you look for a group that's at the same point of the fight that you're trying to do. You hope the 7 other people have somewhat competent minds. And if they do, great. And if they don't, you move on to the next. And the static experience is you try to coordinate 7 other people's schedules and hope that that doesn't fall apart. And also hope that you don't subsequently hate each other at some point. So it's basically how well do you deal with social situations more than how good are you at Final Fantasy XIV?
Yeah.
Because you're fighting essentially 2 different major social situations and your tolerance to them at any given time.
I can imagine. I'm feeling the great weight of streamer privilege of where I just put up a title that says, we're doing X tonight, and it just kind of flows.
Okay, but think about this. Imagine you're doing one on content competitively, right? Like it's brand new, nobody knows it, and everyone has to learn it. And you pick it up really quick, but there's one person who keeps dying on the same mechanic over and over again, right?
Me on Hide
And
on
now-
Stream.
Yeah, and now you're the streamer who has to be like, okay, how do I do this? do I keep trying to encourage them, get them through, or am I like, maybe we'll try tomorrow?
I ran some flex raids throughout BFA, Battle for Azeroth and World of Warcraft, and there was definitely times I was doing some gear checks, looking around, and you end up doing that closing statement of, all right, everybody, great work today. If you have any questions about how to play, talk to your fellows. Let's say you're
such a burn.
Let's say you're a warlock and you're struggling to understand what you should be doing. Talk to your fellow warlocks. Not mentioning anyone in particular, but some of you are just amazingly geared, and we really should see that on our end when we're pushing through past 50%. So check it out this week. Good job. See you next time.
That is literally why I swapped to Horde. I left a guild and a faction to get away from having to be the raid lead for like the C squad. The breaking point for me was someone telling me I don't want to learn how to turn without my keyboard. And I was like, you know what? I'm out.
So there was a group I was in, and I could already tell I wasn't really vibing with them. This was during Shadowbringers. I could tell I wasn't really vibing. Like it didn't feel right. Like I could kind of already tell I wasn't going to stay with them long term. But whatever, we were going. And as we were going, there were just things that were occurring that were frustrating me. But there was a breaking point where somebody said something. And I was like, okay, that's too well encapsulates why I can't play with this group. Like why we're just like not on the same page. Like it's okay for this to happen, but I didn't join under the impression that this would happen. Right.
Okay.
And it was on Titan, the Eden Titan.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. He jumps to a spot and knocks everyone back from that spot. Your goal is to not get knocked off. Right.
Okay.
Very early in the fight, one of the first things you need to know how to do. and somebody kept getting knocked off. And I was like, is there any, what's going on? How does that keep happening? And they were like, I don't know how to not get knocked off by that. And I'm like, you get knocked to the point that's furthest away from the boss. Like, there's a corner right over there. And like, that's the furthest point. They're like, yeah, I just keep getting sent off the edge. I don't know why. And I'm like, just get knocked that way. I'll arm's length and stand there so you can understand. And then they got sent off anyway. And I'm like, that's too much. I can't anymore. I can't. That encapsulated the experience through the first 3 fights. That was my breaking point. All right. And
was this a pug or a static?
This was a static
that you were a part of for this.
That I was a part of. Yeah. I don't lead statics. I don't want to do that. I don't want to wrangle people.
Do you call? Do you do shot calls when you're in there?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll do shot calls.
So there's a MrHappy experience that people are getting when you join the group, but you're not necessarily the DM putting together everyone's schedules.
No. Yeah.
I can understand in theory the idea because people play like D&D in a store, Dungeons and Dragons. They show up, they don't know who they're going to play with, and they're like, I will play with anybody. Like, I need to play this game. That's not me. The idea of, I could see it happen. You're like, hey, we're stuck at 50%, looking for more. Like, that can happen. But Final Fantasy XIV is such an intimate experience. Only 8 people. Woo, that's got to be a personality type that can handle that kind of pressure.
I don't even think that. I think it's just no matter what the skill level is of the group, you have to be able. I think it's almost unreasonable to expect people to necessarily get along, but you need to all understand why you're there and be there for the same kind of reason, I suppose. And so if you're all expecting to be able to knock a fight out in a day or 2, and it's it's doable, it's doable, everyone's done it before, then we're good. By the way, I'm just making sure. There's live debugging going on? I'm just making sure. Yeah.
Camera broke. I am now re-cropping you. Should be good. Okay. Though your scene is slightly changed, and someone's gonna be like, "What the hell happened?" Just tuning in.
Okay. Yeah. We can't see your cam on our end, Kyle.
Yep. I'm gonna restart as best I can, but
okay. Just making sure. Yep. All right. Because am I gonna have to re-explain this? I wasn't sure the level of the F, I suppose. Hey, there it is.
Is it a lowercase f or a capital F?
I'm trying to duck my head into frame.
Essentially, what happened is it threw you in the bottom. Discord farted and threw you in the bottom. Now I gotta chase you down, but we got you.
It's just Discord things.
Yep, Discord things.
Oh, don't worry. I know all about that.
Yeah. So Kyle's a healer. Don't worry, he'll adjust.
Yeah, I'm adjusting. Yeah. Don't ask me to
adjusting.
Addle,
he's not on strike. Yeah. Well, you can't as a healer, so it'd be really weird if I asked you that. If I'm asking my healers to add somebody, you know what? That's another red flag. If someone asks my healer to addle, I'm like, no, that's it.
That's it. I'm out. Can't handle that.
So you were explaining that to you. When you're entering a static, it's a vibe check, or you need to match the vibe.
Yeah, because I there've just been groups that I've been in that are clearly not everyone's on the same page and everyone wants the same thing. Some people just want to chill, have fun. They don't care if they die a whole lot. They don't care if it takes up 3 nights of their week, 4 nights of their week. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Some people want to beat it really quick and don't want people making the same mistakes over and over again, and they hold themselves to that same standard. That's fine. You just got to make sure you're surrounded by the right people. With pugs, you can't do that. You kind of just have to be the best you that you can be. And if everyone else is a disaster around you, that's what you have to accept is happening.
You really do sound like you've played MOBAs before.
Yeah. Oh, I know. I have. I was a support main. So I'm very much used to that.
Don't do that. Why are you doing that? Okay. That's you. That's your gold. And you move on. You learn to accept life at a different pace playing support in a MOBA.
When I throw the Karma Shield on the Tristana as she's running away from a gank and then she rockets back in after the shield goes away, I'm like, that's it. I've done everything I can for you.
You just walk away. You know, there's nothing you can type. You just walk away. It's fine. So we kind of like mapped out this personality. What are those checks in your mind? If I was saying, you know, I'm good enough, I'm going to go to Party Finder. What would you say are my like top 3 businesses that I must be able to do?
You have to understand how the game works.
Fair enough. That's a big ask. That's a big ask.
It's a bigger ask than it seems, because there's a lot of things. Like if you're going into a fight that nobody in the group knows, you have to be able to see, oh, we all spread out and 4 people died. That means that it's an attack that requires 2 people. Like that's like a basic identifier. If 4 people die alone to nothing at all, it's almost always group up with somebody. You know, did it only kill all 4 DPS? Okay, it targets either the DPS or the healers and tanks. Like those are like little basic things that the better you know them, the better you can get into them. Number 2 is, if you don't know those things, be willing to learn. Don't just be like, oh yeah, whatever, pull again. You know? Didn't learn anything. That's it. And number 3 is know how to play your job. Those are the 3 things you have control over. And everyone else, you just have to hope is doing those 3 things. If they don't, so be it. You go through the grind of joined a group, didn't work out, join the next group. Don't take it personally. Move on. Just, that's it.
Is it pretty short? Like with the lockouts, do people say, hey, 2 lockout night? Or do you tend to go 4 or 8 hours and do the WoW thing? Keep pulling.
In pugs, you'll be lucky if you make it past 3 wipes half the time.
Oh, that tracks.
Yeah. Some groups, if you are actually making progress pull to pull on something that's brand new, they will go past that. But if it's like barely making it there or not getting past it in 3 pulls, even if it's a learning party, yeah, people's patience is at its bottom. In a static, I'd say even 1 lockout couple nights a week is like, I know people who clear entire raid tiers like that. You know, they've got a family, they've got a regular 9 to 5. They don't like obsess over 14. They don't play like I do. You know, like how many people can realistically do that? And they make the progress at their own pace. And the 7 people they're playing with are also perfectly okay with that. So it's all about just committing to what you can commit to. Don't overcommit. Don't put yourself in an uncomfortable situation. You know, just be realistic. You can beat anything in this game with any amount of commitment as long as you put in the work to be a good enough player, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to your vibe check, right? Like, I think that's important in any type of game like this. Like, any game where you have to cooperate with other folks. Like, just find people who are on the same page and also, like, know what you're comfortable with. Because worrying about other people's tilt, you should also worry about your own tilt. Like,
Yeah, and some people get tilt from watching other people beat fights. Like if they have a friend who beat it before them. This sounds like I hit you on a personal level.
Please go on.
Like they'll find out like a friend beat it, and that's like all they'll think about is like, oh, they already beat it. I should have beaten it already. Oh man, why can't we beat it? What's going on? What can we do? But like you gotta like that's gotta be out your mind. Like so much. Like people make not competitive things competitive, and it's like, oh, I've seen that enough times. We'll be in the middle of doing like prog on a fight, and somebody will be like, oh, it was just beaten. We're like, we don't care. Like we're like, I'm not gonna think about other people beating the fight. I want to think about us beating the fight. You know.
Thank you for the motivation. I appreciate the report. Moving on.
Yeah. Oh, it's beatable. Wow, would have never figured that, huh? Let's move on.
Kyle, was there a personal experience you were reacting to? That giggle sounded knowing.
Oh, it just you know, people tilt for a bizarre number of reasons. Mine is like I personally like I will teach and I will enjoy teaching, but if we regress, that's where I start to really find my tilt. Like 3 weeks ago, we had this on farm. How did this happen? Where did we lose the thread? that's where I'll start to go. So I was relating to it from the raid organizer standpoint.
That's where my personal despair comes in. And also when I know we've been going at for something too long is when I start doing things I know how to do wrong.
I'm my own worst critic. Great example of that. So ultimate encounters have certainly become quite the spectacle over the years. When they first came out, it was kind of like really an unknown territory. And then they made them like really big, like streamer centric design. They wanted people to like have that surprise moment where like you figured something out for the first time, but then now nobody else needs to figure it out because it's been done. That especially happened with Ultima Weapon. But in this last expansion, they were made to be kind of grueling, like long-term projects that most people did not have done within a week. Some not two, even if they were going at it at the crazy hours you'd expect. And so I play what I consider the easiest role in that of Fizz ranged. I don't want to. I try not to play it. Everyone wants me to play it because I'm willing to play it. I'm trapped. I'm stuck.
Why?
They won't let me off.
Okay, why is that?
Because nobody wants to play it. There's plenty of people who want to tank, heal, melee, caster. Fizz ranged is always oh, look, that guy's willing. Let's sucker him in to do it.
Now hold on, I'm not familiar with this. So like is there defense types on bosses? Like why can't you just bring all casters? What's
so when you're forming a party, you get a bonus based on the number of different roles that you have in your party. It's a 1% overall damage bonus to everybody for each role that you have. So tank, healer, melee, caster, ranged physical. 5% total. So that's one reason. Number two, Fizz range usually bring a unique form of defensive ability. Each of them has their own, like Dancer has additional healing. It's got a shield. It's got damage reduction. Bard has increased healing for the whole party. Machinist can target a monster and make it do less damage, for example. So there's value. There's different values, different strengths to having them. But also limit break generation. If you don't have all the different roles, your limit break generation suffers. And a lot of encounters are very particular about having good limit break generation. So you generally still want to have one of every role in the party. There's a lot of value in it.
Interesting. Okay.
Well, you should change your name to Mr. Nice Guy because apparently you're not just getting in and, swinging your streamer privilege around. You're actually...
I did in Stormblood. In Stormblood, I said I'm not playing anything but Monk. I put my foot down and I said I'm playing Monk this whole expansion. You can't stop me. I've been forced onto something else for the last 5 years. I'm playing what I want to play this expansion. All right.
That's interesting. Yeah, I know that's a thing, but again, our experience, we've done a bunch of extremes, but it was along the way. So it was old extremes at the time, and even though we were doing it mid-eye level with no echo and all that kind of stuff, it's still an experience unique to us. But yeah, it's interesting to hear that physical ranged is. Yeah, I don't know, just on a personal level, because my WoW brain is broken. So I think of this game as my job or my class, even though I could play whoever the heck I want, but I primarily just play Dark Knight. My second favorite job, which is a massive surprise to me so far of what I've played, is Dancer. So
yeah, Dancer's feeling pretty good this expansion too.
I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, it was such. Folks always ask hey, what are your favorite jobs besides your main job? And I'll always go to that, and I'm just I was just so surprised because from the outside looking in, I'm there's a class where you just dance. That sounds ridiculous. I'll never play that. And then I tried it once, and I was like, this is fun as hell.
Yeah, it's a good time. But because I play the easiest role, I tend to feel like I have the opportunity to learn something faster than the harder roles.
Okay.
And so for Ultimate, both the last two, 15 days, 12 hours a day.
Oh. How'd that feel?
What's your stream schedule? I'm assuming that's not every day back to back.
15 days, 12 hours a day.
Holy shit, really? Okay.
I stream 7 days a week as it is. And if I'm progging, I'm streaming.
Okay, gotcha. I was gonna ask, because you don't do 14 every single day. You just did. I just saw you do an Elden Ring. What's your normal schedule?
My normal schedule is what I feel like playing 7 a.m. to 2 p.m.
Okay.
Yeah.
Damn, that is I already came away from Media Tour thinking you were one of the hardest working mofos I've ever met. Like, looking by your, like, hearing you were going to do a guide for every job, as someone who had never gone to a Media Tour before, and we don't do like quote unquote guide content like that. It hurt. I was like, I can't even fathom trying to turn that around. And I like. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's weird to hear that, like, you're in the back of my brain during embargo, but like embargo for us, it was tough because I'm like, I just want to talk about this. I would imagine for you, did you look at it like this is not enough time?
I actually finished with like 3 days left over, and I was like, what else can I make?
Nice. You're a machine. My God.
That's a product of this. A lot of the jobs not changing a whole lot since Endwalker, and having already done it for it was a product of the job design. Like if 8.0 is a sweeping change, like some people think it's going to be, I don't even think it's going to be as much as people think it's going to be, then it gets a lot harder. Also, our Media Tour slot was with two weeks and a little change left over, whereas like EU had to wait till the following week. Like if I lived in EU and I had to do the same thing, oh no. They had 1 week less of time to make everything.
Yeah, it was fascinating to think about because I've done media for other games, but just the way they do it for 14 is very different to what I'm used to. And so I was thinking about, I'm like, man, depending on the type of content that you make, this weight means very different things to very different people. Yeah.
For me, it was run of the mill, especially because like with so much of a kind of dead season beforehand, it was like, it's just kind of a swing of like getting into the swing of things, like preparing for the expansion launch itself, where I put out a video or two a day, essentially for the entire month. And that was just cramming that all into 1 day of worth of releases, I suppose.
Yeah.
But yeah, 15 hours, 15 days, 12 hours a day for raiding. And I'm the shot caller a lot of the times.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So like that's a different kind of like mental check. Like that's so way out of the experience that I would use to like tell people about raiding. That's something that's super specific to me. And yeah, and still being a streamer and still talking to chat the entire time. Fizz range, I play Fizz range so I can talk to chat because I don't have to look at the game to play Fizz range.
Yeah. I'm so thankful anyone finds Kyle and me just hooting and hollering to each other entertaining, because like when we run extremes blind, which is what we do anytime we try it for the first time, and to us that's the hardest stuff we've done so far, our chat interaction is not great.
Existence would be an accurate word.
Yeah, it's much more like yelling. Is this what's going on? Is that, do we stand here? And then that's not where we stand. And then we go, shit, and then die. And then you look over in chat and there's just a lot of LOLs. And
I felt things when earlier, MrHappy, you said you should just know when 4 people die that this was this. And I'm just imagining, 2 weeks ago when Heidelin did a backflip at the very beginning of the fight, and we went, well, what the hell was that? What was up with, what the hell is a back? Why'd she backflip?
Why'd she backflip is its own question. That's that's not a normal thing. That's a very fight specific thing, which is, again, that's what Dawntrail does a lot of. It has a lot of that. Why did the boss just do that? Like what, you just don't know what it means. Like you have to die to it. You won't know.
Oh my God. It feels so good to hear you say it. Do you know how often we get the dismissive comment of you've seen it before? And it's like, yeah, but it didn't look like that.
No, that's genuinely one of the big things about Dawntrail is it's like you may die to something that's like, it may be like two groups have to stack up in groups of 4, right? But you didn't know the boss was, there was no way to like automatically divine that the boss was doing that and that that's what you needed to do and that should have been common sense. It's like, oh, we learned after we were murdered.
Oh, that's cool. Okay, yeah, because that's how we've come up with our own homebrew way of like learning fights for the first time, which is like because we record it in case we make a video. So like usually one of us is streaming and the other one is just running a local recording of the fight. And that way when we wipe, we pull up, we call it, all right, let's look at the tape, and we rewind our own fight and we find, okay, who died? Why did they die? Was there a buff or a debuff that we missed? Which that to me, that's my own personal pain point if I see a buff or a debuff that I didn't notice in the moment, which means I didn't hover over it, so now I can't read it in the replay. That's my nobody can critique me in that moment because I'm already super angry.
I mean, even experienced raiders forget to do that while they're just like, oh, I have a debuff, but they don't think like that's actually something I deliberately retrain before tiers come out is instantly seeing something I don't recognize and hovering over it. So it's either on camera or I can take a screenshot of it. That's something even experienced people forget to do in the hype of seeing something they haven't seen before. So.
Yeah, like I think the most I've ever had that in my mind was maybe when we did Diamond Weapon Extreme for the first time, and I think even then I only remembered to do it for like phase 1. The second we started pushing into phase 2 and that fight started getting real weird, I completely forgot again. Like,
yeah, your blind prog experience sounds like what should be the average blind prog experience.
Okay,
like
that's cool.
It's not like what happens sometimes in the PF though is somebody makes no effort to learn any of that. They wait for someone else to figure it out. And then even after the other person has figured it out, they don't listen to them. And then they go again and wonder, oh, that's what it does? And it's like, bruh, we...
The time expense. Yeah.
And if you had a whole group of people that's how the experience they want to have, that's totally fine. But like, yeah, when you get in like with the when you have mixed expectations, that's where friction and fights are going to start brewing.
I demand personal experience of the mechanic before I learn it. So you make guides, tons of guides. On that particular day, I remember turning on YouTube because I was like, okay, I need to change out a thumbnail. We're doing a stream this afternoon, big surprise. And my screen was just flooded. MrHappy released like 14 videos, more than that. There's so many videos. I can attempt to like be like, okay, well, okay, I see you said some don't change dancers like 4 minutes, and maybe that was sane to do, but still, that is an insane amount of guide content. And then about 2 weeks ago, I watched your rewind of Astrologian. I think it was maybe a year old, but for a full hour, you sat down and out of your brain poured the entire history of Astrologian. Mad impressive. Very much enjoyed it.
Really like the Wayback Machine for going back to old ability lists on websites. No, very, very big fan of that.
It was a cool exploration. It really told me like why people love this version of Astrology. It sounded like it was just OP. So I was like, okay, it was OP, so people loved it. It was case closed. We're all good. That's why we're scared about cards now. But what is the content creation for guides like on YouTube and Final Fantasy XIV? Do you feel like you enter into a pretty established space? Do you put out a guide and there's a lot of debate? Or is it a pretty much like, this is the MrHappy Strat. I will now run into game and spread the word of MrHappy Strat.
Oh, I hate when people do that. So my approach to guide making has always been experiential. Whereas I think that's why I've always been like back and forth about making guides. Ivy, were you just trying to jump in a box? Stop it. Hey. I don't want to talk about my Bramble guides either, Ivy, but you got to relax. All right.
Chad is very excited about your brambles. I want to know this story in a moment. Please continue.
Oh, don't worry. I'll get to it.
Oh, cool.
So I essentially take whatever my group learned naturally and present that as a guide. I don't try to say it's the thing you should do. I try to say it's a thing that will work. And if you learn something else, feel free, go ahead. But I feel very, it's difficult for me to look at something else, even if it's a better strat, and often just want to then suddenly make my video about what somebody else made and created. So I always have that kind of draw where sometimes I'll include both. But for me, it's literally just taking my experience, what happened, what I learned, and then presenting that. And if people like that and that's what they want to use, great. If they don't, that's fine. But at least it was what our group largely came up with. And as such, that leads to the Bramble strat, where our group in Eden came up with a strategy and it became the going norm. And in the PF, it was called Happy Brambles. There were a few different Bramble strats. There was like Myth Brambles, there was like Diamond Strat, but Happy Brambles on Ether became the standard. And
which boss was that?
That is Cloud of Darkness.
Okay.
E9.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. In normal mode, she drops them in set locations, but in Savage, you choose where they're dropped. They're dropped on the players. So you have complete autonomy over what the outcome actually looks like.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. And so ours was to make like a little box around the boss and then run through the middle of the room for anything we needed with like little corridors. Some people like to just drop them all at the wall, for example, but then the boss goes to the wall, so they're in the way at the wall kind of deal. So it depends. Like there's pros and cons to each. But I didn't even use that strat after like the first couple of weeks, but it was in the guide. So it was like I was responsible for it the entire like rest of the expansion.
Okay, so is this? I think you started to get into this a little bit when we were chatting at Media Tour, and we hadn't heard the story before. Is what happened? Your strategy made it out in the world, got picked up by party finder players, and then you ended up in a pickup group, and someone was trying to explain your own strategy to you.
That's a different strat. That's Endwalker. That's
okay.
That's the first fight in Pandemonium. So essentially, there's a mechanic, and there were two ways to solve it. One of them involved doing it correctly, which is what that's all mine was. Mine was just doing the mechanic as intended. And maybe there was like a slightly different intended way, but it's one of those where it's like a puzzle in a sense, where it's like, oh, you have a fire debuff, you need to get hit by ice, like, and that's the correct way to do it. You know, it's logical. But what the party finder started doing is that was too complicated for some people. And so they would just let the tank take a damage down and just ignore the color swap so everybody else could just do an easier way. And my guy didn't do that. I was like, no, you don't need to do damage down. You could, like, it's not the end of the world if you screw up. Like, it's better than dying, but, you know, I'm not going to tell you to do it wrong on purpose, you know? And so I went into a group, random pickup group, and they said they were doing my strat. And I was like, okay, I made the video. I know which one that is. That's the one we'll do. And then I did my strat, and that one individual did it incorrectly or tried to do it the other way. And I went, you're supposed to swap there. And they said, there is no swap in the MrHappy Strat. To me, they said that to, and I said, I typed, bro, look at my name. I am MrHappy.
I am the strategy.
I made the guy. And they were like, well, this is awkward.
So just for clarification, there was not a swap, or there was a swap and the person misinterpreted your strategy?
They basically did the version of it that's deliberately incorrect in order to make it like, you know, so people didn't have to think as much. Yeah.
Oh geez. Oh my God. Yeah. Moonstone chat calling it a Tony Hawk moment. That's absolutely it. Just
Tony Hawk.
Anyone ever tell you you look like MrHappy? Oh man. Someone please link us to a clip of that I'm sure exists.
It does. Yeah. People pop into my stream and it'll be like, oh, your clip of that just showed up on YouTube Shorts for me randomly yesterday. And I'll be like, oh, great. I think it's my most watched clip on Twitch also. One of my most watched. Yeah.
I don't think we ever did a short for my I'm sure as shit won't be playing Final Fantasy 14 quote.
Yeah.
Should probably make that
be
a
good
clip.
to get that out in the world, you know, share that more.
Should probably, yeah.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
Should probably do that. That's fantastic. I mean, that's the kind. How do you like that kind of a thing? Because like when you're in content creation, there comes a point where if you experience like any sort of success, where I think we all have a moment where we realize we're not in control anymore. Like you're not in control of how you are perceived. You're not in control of what your audience and what people who watch your content go and do with what you put out into the world.
Say that again.
So like, do you like, how does that hit you? Like, do you love that kind of a thing? Does it kind of like, does it make you embarrassed? Does it depend on what moment in time we're talking about?
Definitely depends on the moment in time we're talking about. Because there are times where it's like, I remember especially in A Realm Reborn, there weren't very many guide makers back then. And so, again, mine was all experiential. However we figured out how to do something was what I put out. And because there weren't as many, it would usually be a far more regular occurrence at that time. But if somebody tried to like break from the norm, they'd be like, no, that's not what the MrHappy video says. You got to do what the MrHappy video says. I'm like, please don't do that. Please stop. Please don't do that. Don't like. Please just allow people to have discussion and a thought that's different, please. I don't want to be the one that's made responsible for the way that you take information I put out there and enforce it upon everyone.
Sounds like
I'm glad you said that.
Yeah, it sounds like your presentation is meant to encapsulate that idea. This is how we did it, and this is how you could do it at this point in time, as someone who just skipped all the cutscenes to get to the end to make the guide to be here today with you right now and the cutting edge of this content.
Yeah, I like to use it as opportunities to kind of present people what it's like to go through content really fast. What is it? It's kind of like a snapshot in time, because a lot of people wait for strategies to come out. They wait for information to come out and then they tackle it. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just not the way I like to play. I like to be at the forefront and try to figure something out that works for me. Like with Elden Ring, I've never looked up a build on Elden Ring. I just take the pieces and make something myself, even if it's not the best possible thing it could be. So what that ends up happening is you get what's called prog brain. And it's where you have to think about things in the fastest logical method that you can versus the most reliable method that you can. That creates strategies that are just not as easy on the average person, because we're trying to resolve it and figure it out as fast as possible. Great example in the second extreme trial in Dawntrail, there's a mechanic where we solved it by breaking up into 2 groups of 4 and resolving it into little groups. That's not the only way you could have done it. It's made so there's a lot of ways to interpret it. But then, it actually had a cheese strat that was patched out. Very rare that they patch out strategies, so you can tell it was really cheesy. But then another group came up with a strat that was like, oh, we can just line everyone up, all 8 people essentially, and just go down the list and resolve it one at a time, and barely anyone has to move. Like, while we were rushing through, 22 hours into the day of release, wasn't really a consideration. We were just like, yeah, just break up into light parties, tank, healer, melee, ranged. Go. Tank, go. Melee, go. Healer, go. Range, go. Done. All right. Passed it. But that doesn't make for the best strategy. It just makes for the fastest, like, common sense, like, let's not think about this anymore in depth way of doing it.
Yeah, you parse it in simple ways. So you can A, B, maybe even C, D, E test different things. Yeah. No, it's...
Sounds like you're on the right job for it, because as the healer, my brain goes, one person died, sacrifice them. We can move on. Like, just let them die.
We do that week 1 too.
Res them.
We do that too.
And it's done.
I mean, if that's, when only one person dies, typically you can, in a lot of cases, recover from that. But when it's...
Not all the cases, but
any more than that.
Enough, yeah.
Again, coming from my experience, which so far up to this point has only been extremes. But... yeah.
Even at extremes, sometimes it just falls up. Like, some fights are just designed to, like, if somebody dies on one specific thing, the very next thing, like within seconds later, is massively punished.
We had that with Heidel and EX. That's how we actually like sent off Endwalker. That was the last thing we did before maintenance, and so we did that blind. And I had my own issues with it. Don't talk to me about chakrams. Do not do it. But it was the first time I have talked to no one about this, but I felt like that was the first fight where I really felt like DPS mattered that we had experienced. And we had, obviously DPS matters. We have done other extremes where it really felt like we need to hit this in Rage, and we really need to hit it. But that's the most we've ever seen in Rage on any extreme fight was doing Heidelin.
Yeah. It can happen all. Sometimes it's better when people are dead. Yeah. Emerald Weapon's a great example of that.
Trying to remember Emerald Weapon. Which phase?
I'm sorry, not Emerald. Diamond Weapon. My bad.
Oh, for Limit
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's less people to be kind of, yeah. Okay, sure.
Yeah. Oh man. That night, that was the first time anyone had even mentioned limit cut to us, and I just got flustered because I'm like, nothing's called limit cut. What chat? What are you talking about?
Oh yeah, yeah. That's a chariot dynamo moment, as I like to call it.
Oh.
Do you know what chariot dynamo is?
Never heard it. What's up?
So chariot is a point blank AoE. Dynamo is a donut AoE. It's a term from Second Coil that has stuck amongst the boomer players. Yeah.
Boomer players.
Yeah.
Oh, that's yeah. Like I've only just like 2 weeks ago, I like in our own Discord, I was like, hey everybody, we're actually caught up on Endwalker now. So does anyone have a good guide on ability names? Because I really want to actually start learning these damn things, and I was so happy that the first thing someone sent me, it was
no, I'm happy.
It was
I warned you.
Hold on. I've got a thing for that. There we go.
On brand.
Paragon, were you the one that sent it? Hell yeah. Like it was a guy that actually used like names like Circle Donut and stuff like that, and not the whatever this ability was the first time it ever appeared in the game. Because
Proteans is another big one. That's that's a conal AoE on every player is a Protean.
Yeah.
Clock spots is the more accurate way people would say that now. Clock positions.
Okay.
Yeah. I've only recently started picking up on that, and I like that one. I like that one quite a bit. Please keep using that one, everyone. My brain knows what to do with that information. You say Protean, and I think Mass Effect. That's where my brain goes for that.
Fair, yeah.
Oh my goodness. Oh, well, I mean, this has been a rad talk. So, like, as we're winding down here, like, I'm curious because it kind of seems like you were just kind of off to the races with content creation. Like, how do you think about your content creation now? Like, do you think of yourself in like buckets? Like, I have my stream content, I have my video content. Do you think of yourself as a guide content creator, or are you more free flowing these days?
I am what you would call a certified Final Fantasy XIV yapper.
Okay.
Anything and everything I can talk about, I will talk about. That's pretty much it.
I get that. You've reached that critical mass of game knowledge where you can hit record, and that can be the video. That's a very powerful thing.
Yeah. Like, I love that nobody reads the lodestone, because they just watch my video of me reading the lodestone.
That is fantastic. Thank you for your service.
What's funny is when people be like, "Oh, I read the lodestone, but I wanted to watch you read the lodestone too," and I'm like, "Thank you. They're the real OGs.
I'm so glad.
They're the real OGs."
Oh, that's great. Well, dude, thank you so much for making time to come on. We wanted to chat with you ever since we met at Media Tour, and our Discord keeps asking when they heard. As soon as you let it slip that you taught me how to shabu shabu, the Discord's
let
been
it
like,
slip. Couldn't wait to tell people that.
The big story.
Because I love introducing people to new foods. That's one of my favorite things to do.
Been trying to find one here, and there's just like nothing like that around these spots. Because I'm like, oh man, Katie would love this, and I can't find anything that's as high quality, I guess I would say.
That rice porridge was afterwards.
It was very good.
Yeah.
It was probably my favorite part of the meal, which is wild when you think about how many different things we got to eat that night. But
it was like snail and like, there was like octopus. There was a lot of like little things. Yeah, I had to eat some of Todd's because he was like, "Oh no, I'm not doing that."
Yeah. Chat, you're absolutely right. I'm sure there is probably a place in Orlando, but that's despite how many times I post photos a month of me at Epcot, I do take weekends off from visiting that city. Well, wonderful. Well, for folks that do not already know, where can everyone find you, Happy?
You can find me MrHappy1227 pretty much everywhere now. I stream on 4 different platforms now, and I put out content daily or bi-daily. this
4?
point.
Okay, so
4.
Twitch and YouTube. What are the other 2?
Twitter and TikTok.
Oh, damn.
Oh.
I'm not sure I knew you could stream on TikTok, but that shows how out of touch I am.
Well, I figure, but if it is going to get banned in the US, I'll at least milk it for what it's worth at this point. And Twitter is really more like a fancy go live post. You know, like people see that I go live there and they're like, oh, he's probably live also on Twitch. And it sticks in like the top right of Twitter. So like the whole time someone's on there, if they follow me, they know I'm there.
Oh, it's
I forget about that. But yeah, Twitter's been like really aggressive with go live notifications. And as a matter of fact, it has notified me about you going live a couple times. And I'm like, why would I watch a stream on Twitter? But again, I was also the person who was like, why would I watch someone play a video game? So I don't trust myself anymore.
Oh, and then it hates the link sharing. So, ooh, yeah, that's kind of a work.
Twitter, yeah,
that's the thing. They hate link sharing, but if you stream on it, it has no problem letting everyone know about that.
Yeah. And then, yeah, you're probably right. People go, oh, he's live. Well, I'm not going to watch you on this mess of a social media site, but I'll go to one that actually functions.
The
strategies. Yeah. Huh. We'll have to look into that, Kyle. We'll have to look into that.
Sounds effective.
Wonderful. Well, everyone should go and check that out. Go learn the MrHappy Strat.
Just don't try to tell me about it.
Yeah, just don't. Yeah. Empower yourself.
Yep. And, as always, too, as we're here near the end, big shout out to everybody who supports us. If you're a YouTube member, thank you so much. If you're supporting us on Patreon, check it out at supportourbromance.com. If you're watching on stream, here's our most recent patrons and our legendary level backers. Thank you so much. And, of course, check out dialcastsystems.com. Use the code BROMANCE. Get it free. Oh, I need to update that. It's 1 terabyte NVMe SSD. So, thank you, everybody. Thanks again, Happy. And that's the end of the official podcast.
The official record has ended.
Yeah, Happy. We do tend to just hang out for a few minutes afterwards, chat with chat.
I do the same thing too. I do the same thing at the end.
You're more than welcome to dip out whenever you want.
Yeah, absolutely.
Probably before top of the hour. I'm gonna go back and do some more white mage leveling. Probably.
Rad.
I'm working on fate grinds right now and MSQ. So.
Fate grinds because the mount speed? Is that what's going on there?
No. So starting in Endwalker, they introduced something called a bicolored gemstone voucher. And you can only buy them if you have shared fates at max in every zone. So you get like a reputation level per zone from Shadowbringers onward based on your fate completion. And if you max every zone, you can buy these vouchers. And the vouchers let you buy cosmetics. And this expansion, it's a sugar glider mount for 500 vouchers.
Oh, shit. I want a sugar glider. That sounds amazing.
It's 500 vouchers at 100 gemstones apiece for 50,000 gemstones total. And the average gemstone per fate is 16.
Well, people want things to grind. Yeah, people said they're missing the grind.
That is a grind. Holy shit.
They've actually buffed it a lot this expansion, though. Forlorn Maidens and Forlorn, which are like bonus monsters that pop up, they multiply gemstones now too. They used to not. So like if you get a Maiden or a Forlorn spawn, it becomes 20 gemstones. Then it becomes 24 from the Maiden buff for the next one. And I think with the Forlorn, it goes up to like 64, I think, from the next fate that you complete.
Jeez, yeah.
It's still a lot, but you know.
Yeah, we haven't engaged a ton with fates, just kind of in general. It's like
most people don't. That's a very average experience. Like you maybe, like you said, get the mount speed up as you're casually going through. Like if you don't have the SDS Fenrir, you don't want to spend however much on a bike.
I assume that like for content creation, that's a great thing because then you can, you sort of hold court. You're grinding, and then people come by and say, "Hey, what do you think of the monk changes?" And you're available.
Yeah. My mental commit. Listen, I play Fizz range. They can do that no matter what I'm playing. But in Fates, it's really, really easy to do with Fates. It's good. It's good yap time. And I've gotten like 3 jobs to 100 off it already. Anyway, it's pretty quick. I can get like a job to 100 in like a stream.
Oh, nice.
Fates if I want to. Yeah.
I did that when we were like waiting to move on to another expansion. I want to say around Stormblood before we started Shadowbringers. I was using Fates. I've like for like any of my DPS jobs because we were prepping because there was a lot of requests for us to do Shadowbringers role quests on streams. So we were getting other jobs up even though we weren't current, so we could do it as part of our Shadowbringers stream. And I'm used to the tank queue, so I was waiting on my DPS queues and doing Fates, and it seemed really good. And then Endwalker, once we capped out, I was like, oh, I want to get my Black Mage up, and Fate XP seemed awful. Like, I don't know if I just wasn't paying close attention, but it seemed like a pretty rotten way to level all jobs.
It's definitely best at the start of the expansion when a lot of people are doing it.
Okay.
And even after that, like, you really want to find a party for like the zone that you're in. You don't want to do it alone.
Okay.
Like,
man,
I can crank out. I did White Mage 92 to 94 and a half in the 2 hours before stream this morning. Like before this, like I streamed for like a little over 2 hours before I came to this. So, and that was about 1,600 gemstones. So that's 16 of the 500 that I need for the mount.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Progress.
Huh. Yeah. My thing is like if I'm leveling off air, it's like I want to be antisocial because every other aspect of playing this game is very social for us. So I'm like, I don't want to talk to people. And I consider running dungeons antisocial because you just get thrown in, and unless I have to help someone out, it's pretty quiet, you know.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, chat said you could always start a Discord ping, be like making a Fate party in whatever zone, just gonna chill.
Yeah.
And not talk to any of you.
Yeah. No, I
it's
know
always
I don't
weird
have to talk. I don't even want to like find a group is the level of engagement I want to do when I'm playing this game offline.
Yeah, no, Fate's definitely kind of like group up for it with like it's kind of like getting thrown into a dungeon, except you're choosing to join the group and nobody talks the whole time.
Gotcha.
Like like maybe the leader says, "Oh, this is the Fate we're currently doing," and then that's it. Like that's the only interaction they have the whole time.
Gotcha. Okay. And maybe I was just in some dead ass zones, just had no groups going.
Yeah, you kind of got to go looking in the party finder to see if anyone's doing it. And even then, it's normally like off season, like maybe 3 or 4 people, which is enough because the Fates will scale because there's not like a lot of people in the zone.
Oh yeah, I mean, anyone. Like I found one other dude out doing like Stormblood Fates on my Black Mage, give you an idea where my level's at, and it was insane how much it sped up the process.
It's double the people.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Oh, jeez. Yeah, it's been interesting learning that. I've just got this hair right now. I'm like, I really want a Black Mage. My only range magical is Summoner, and I just don't care for it.
Yeah, you and a lot of people right now. Not the most positive headspace about that job going around right now.
It is my first job just because I was like, I just want to play some. I don't usually play in these types of games, and I'm always a tank. And here I am, maining Dark Knight. But it's because I like it. It's a good time.
If one wanted to really stare into the abyss, the center of the burning trash can, is it the forums? Like, all I see on Twitter is extremely positive putting down of thing that isn't liked. And everyone moves on with like, there's a shouting at the void, and I don't know what the void is.
So you know the Lion King meme, the "We never go there." Yeah, that's the.
That's the void. Okay.
What about that dark place over there?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Because all last week, my 14 Twitter were people being like, "I'm sick of all these people hating on Wook Lamont," and I'm like, I have literally not seen a single person say a bad thing about this character. Who? Are we straw manning, or what are we reacting to?
I've seen a good bit.
Have you? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm not sure what it's, because they're not like quote retweeting anything, and they're not arguing in anyone's replies. So I'm like, where is this coming from?
Well, let me point you to the fourth post in general discussion. 1,309 replies, 185,000 views. Wow, Wook Lamont is really single-handedly ruining the Dawntrail story.
Wow. Oh wow. Okay. All right. So they're it's just like being over. Okay, this is exactly the type of shit I was used to saying back when I covered Blizzard games. Like,
yeah, I want my old face back. Black Mage should be doing 15% higher damage than any job in this game.
Nice.
Dead jobs. Reviews out on Metacritic.
Oh, sure. Sure.
The negative impact of poor character writing on the quality of Dawntrail's MSQ.
Ooh, what a diatribe. Nice.
Yeah, big big one.
Okay, so the forums.
Huh.
Yeah, the forums. Yeah,
Okay.
I've actually made videos of just reading bad takes on the forums, and I found actually a trend. Really interesting. There's about 4 people who live on the forums, and they populate about 90% of these threads. And there's the occasional level-headed person who tries to have us be on any side of the argument, not necessarily against the post or with the post. And they pretty much get drowned out within about 5 minutes from the other 4 people that are posting on there. So, yeah.
I will say I cannot get in the headspace of wanting to actively participate in a forum in the year 2024.
No. Okay, I'm going to read you literally. There's 3 posts back to back, all from the exact same person, the latest post. And they commented on the threads, is there anything good about Dawntrail at all? Give back pre-Dawntrail models now and hashtag Final Fantasy 14 Healer Strike.
It's quite the combination. I mean, they're really going for the royal flush.
Hey.
Yeah. Like that's like the average experience. That's the same. And then the Black Mage should do higher damage than any job in this game, and dead jobs. Both of the most recent posts are from the same person. In fact, one of them was made by that person and has no replies.
I mean, at least make some bot accounts, like some fake accounts to reply to yourself. That's pretty rough.
Yeah.
Huh. So what happened in the Blizzard sphere is Blizzard started responding to Reddit threads. You know, devs would take their personal time. Like, this is really kind of them. Like, they would go to Reddit and respond to the players in hopes of building that rapport. So all that navigated to Reddit, but it doesn't sound like the forums are populated by the devs. So it's just where people live to have these prolonged self-centered conversations.
I mean, most people just do Discord for everything nowadays. And like anyone who's like making hate groups are like closed Discords that like not everyone is a part of a lot of the time. And so I feel like there's more division of it, but like the this isn't universally true. I'm going to make a general statement, but it's not. But all of the worst opinions come from boomers. So and so they're all stuck on the forums.
Okay. So the archaic nature of the tool being used for the shit takes it's Ouroboros. It's a snake eating it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. In this case, it's a very geriatric snake, but
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's like that's where they were before, and all the people who like want to have discussions, even if they kind of agree with some of the takes, maybe just not to that extreme, they've moved into modern methods of having those discussions and interacting with people, and what's left over is an echo chamber.
Yeah. Oh, now we're debating age. I believe boomer is being used here as just longtime player of this game.
Yes, tied to the Final Fantasy title in this case.
Yeah, I think you could say it when you've been playing any game for you're a boomer within that. Like I'm a boomer for 14. Like I'm in my 30s, but that's irrelevant because somebody could have been playing since they were 15 and be 25 and be a boomer in Final Fantasy 14.
I like once a month, Mr. Bill and I in the Discord will have a wonderful moment where we both like come over to each other and go, do you remember when there were no metas and Dota? Oh, there's no meta. Like back in the day when no one knew how to play, we would just play Dota for fun. Can you believe the wild times we used to have and reminisce? And I think that's a perfect example of what's going on here, though I guess that would be more accepting of what's the passage of time.
Yeah.
You should hear 11 boomers as one of them. You should. That's a wild.
You know,
that's a wild thing.
I can see how it would be cozy.
Cozy is not.
I will say, at least in our community, the folks that really like 11, I think they do a really realistic job singing its praises. Like they're honest about its shortcomings. But I'm with Kyle. I feel like they explain what they find cozy about it really well. Like, I get it. It sounds extremely repetitive, and like I wouldn't personally have a good time, but if I had played it in the moment, I probably would have enjoyed it.
Okay, someone in chat actually said what I see more so is I hate this, it's great. Is more so what I witness and experience, because it'll be like, oh dude, I remember staying up for 12 hours straight to camp Bleeping Lizzie, and I would miss the spawn over and over again, and that guy would leave, so I know he probably got the drop, and then I would claim it and it wouldn't drop, and I did that for 6 months, and before I got the boots, I miss that. And it's like, I'm going to exit from this conversation without having an opinion.
Yeah,
I mean, a little bit is trauma bonding.
WoW classic, but spending that whole
real...
level, 1 point right in wand damage, 1% wand damage. Oh man, that feels nice.
But some of that stuff does lead to a more engaged social experience, which is where real relationships are born out of, and that's
that's the level-headed take. That's not what they're saying, though.
This is far-reaching, but that's why anyone went back and played WoW Classic, I think, because it's just like, oh, maybe we streamlined this a little too much, and there's no reason for people to try and get along because content has been so well trivialized.
Yeah, that's another one. Spending an hour making a party, 30 minutes getting to the party, and then someone has to leave.
Classic.
Yeah.
Like, but it was
quite literally
personal.
It was, yeah. And like I started to recognize, like the pug healers and tanks for that level range, and so like you learned people, and that part of it was cool. I didn't necessarily need the 30-minute travel time, but yeah, I don't know. It's interesting to talk about, like, why do we nostalgia? Why do we grab onto the things that we grab onto is something that has always fascinated me about these types of games.
I think it's impression. I think it's the first impression of how a game of anything should be. Yeah. Like I like Devil May Cry, but I don't like Bayonetta. Because my idea of that type of game is pretty much what Devil May Cry is, and Bayonetta doesn't capture certain things about it. Doesn't mean it's not good, but I'm nostalgic about my early Devil May Cry feelings more so than anything else. And there's just something's just missing from it every time.
Yeah, where it's and then at some point it can take a turn, and that's where the weird negativity from longtime players comes from, and it's strange. Yeah, I don't know. I love talking about it with chat because I think we've gotten really lucky and we found folks that can have a calm conversation about this kind of stuff. But it's like, I don't know. Don't you remember why you started playing these games in the first place? Like, it probably wasn't to fight with strangers on the internet. It's probably not why, WoW or EverQuest or Guild Wars or FF11 was your first MMO. You probably like the idea of an online world that other players inhabited, or you were already into the IP, or your friend was playing and you wanted to play with your friend.
Chat's got mine.
What?
I love FromSoft. I love Dark Souls, Hades. Freaking hate Hollow Knight. First time I died in there, I was like, I'm hanging this up. What a piece of shit. That game pissed me off so bad.
I have an MMO I bounced off of pretty quick.
WildStar.
Yeah, honestly, WildStar, yeah. Yeah, I bounced off of WildStar. All my friends were like, they wouldn't shut up about how great WildStar was, and I was like, it's really similar to WoW, y'all. And I just went back to WoW. I'm like, I'm already in bed over here. I'm already set up. Like, tell me.
Let me tell you, as someone who's colorblind, WildStar was unplayable to me. When you got into like a dungeon or a raid or even PvP, all the ground AoEs overlapping to like visualize everything, I was like, I'm out. There's no shot that I'll survive this game in any capacity.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. New World. That's probably the fastest I've dropped an MMO.
Oh, did you play it? Did you actually like fire it up?
Yeah, I was doing the Instance podcast still at the time, so we would like try any MMO that came out, and yeah, I don't know. Scott was having a good time, and I was just like, how? When I got on the show,
He was logging.
Brutal.
it's one of the worst games I've ever played.
I'm telling you, he was mining or logging or something. Those are the people who had the most fun with it when it came out.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know either. That was me with Black Desert. I lasted like an hour.
Never tried it.
I've had a lot of
Heard
friends try to
about
get me
it.
into it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, my gotcha friend tried to get me into it, and so I don't usually
Trust
trust any of their suggestions. I will probably play a gotcha game at some point, but yeah, as they're more and more of them are coming out with like pretty straightforward RPG experiences, I'm like, I'm sure I'll play one of these one day. But like back when that was out, I was just like, nah, I'm good.
That's a great example, though, of that feel, because they were like, okay, so when you're doing a trade route on Black Desert, you have to like take your stuff and you put it in a cart. And then you have to guard that cart when it moves across the land. And like, it's going to be raided by players and NPCs. It's going to be and I'm like, that sounds so freaking awesome. I never want to play that. Like, I love that idea. That's so cool.
You know what that sentence makes me think of? So there's a game that I am 100% sure, and I never go that far to be that egotistical about my opinion, will be an absolute gutted disaster when it releases. Ashes of Creation.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of suspect things going on in there.
There's been I played it in like 2017 or 2018 or something at a PAX. Did you know when I played it? It's not like this anymore. Every ability had a Gears of War style reload to it.
Ooh.
Every single skill you had to, while doing the boss, like cast a spell, Gears of style reload. Swing your sword, Gears of War style reload.
I do like active reload, but maybe not on every ability.
It was everything. It was every class I played, every ability I used, I had to time the reload. Like sometimes it would let you combo into another skill. Sometimes it was just to make it as strong as possible. And if you didn't do it, then you couldn't cast. You had to wait like a second to cast because you had to. That's just how it worked. So it was like you fail the Gears of War style reload where he jams the weapon and it's not as fast. It's the same thing.
Oh man!
But then
like that. But yeah, for every ability, that's too much.
Imagine if you were playing 14 and every one of your abilities had a Gears of War style.
Yeah, no, F that noise. That sounds absolutely awful.
But you know what really sold me on? I don't like. Okay, the company's changed a lot since then, so it's really not fair for me to say this. But I knew I didn't trust it when PUBG became popular, and Fortnite became popular because PUBG tried to sue them. It was your fault, PUBG. Never forget that that they were so popular. Ashes of Creation put out a battle royale for their game on Steam and said, we're going to use this to fine-tune our combat system for the MMO. I don't believe that for a second. They were hoping it popped off like Fortnite did when they pivoted.
Interesting. I like that. That's a good theory.
There's no way they were like, why would I want my MMO to have its combat forged in the fires of a battle royale when I'm going to be doing trade routes and stuff? Like, why would I want that? I would never want that. I would sign off of that immediately.
Well, that's like every streamer who streams a new game for the first time going, I just want to see what it's like. It's like, yeah, except if 20,000 people show up to watch it, you're going to stream it tomorrow too. Like,
don't give away the secrets. No.
Y'all know what we're doing.
Oh no. Yeah, Ashes of Creation. I watch every new year. My first thing I do, wake up the next day, I'm like, okay, where's the 2025 MMOs of the year video? And Ashes of Creation had been on there for like 10 years. But I always end up looking it up, and something like Ghosts of Deers or something like that is there, and I'm like, sick. When's this coming out? And
yeah, man,
the thing that's really bad is
we could have you back on Happy for a whole.
Could actually be good, but I think it's doomed regardless, even if it is. It doesn't have a strong IP backing, which is crucial, and it's trying to be. They keep wanting to add new things. It's got feature creep, and it's not even out. Like, at least when Warframe has feature creep, it was in beta for like a decade, and they just release it, right? This game is like gone from like engine to engine, and it's had its entire combat system and everything. It's like you're going to doom yourself from the get-go because you don't even know what your game is. You're trying to be the everyman's game, and the everyman's game is sometimes the no man's game.
Well, they've talked about that. I know there's a lot of information out there about the scrapped StarCraft Ghost game, and they said that that was what was happening internally. As they were like, "Oh, Halo's big. Can we have like deathmatch?" And they're like, "We weren't building that at all. What the hell are you talking about?" Like, we need to start adding entirely other games. But that it seems like that happens way more often than it is admitted to.
Just can't win. Just MMOs done. Riot started over, so like basically with their MMO, so you know that's in the dirt for however long.
Yeah, it's a miracle any game gets released. Like any like outside of your darling titles that were made by one person, like Stardew Valley. Like the size and scope of how many people have to touch a game before it gets out the door, it's a miracle anything actually makes it into our hands.
Yeah. That's all right. We got 14.
Yep.
And honestly, games like ESO have been doing better in recent years.
Yeah, I've noticed that with ESO.
The MMO landscape, I think, is the best it's ever been. I mean, I literally had a podcast for a little bit called WoW Killer, and the joke was like nothing ever killed it. And for so long, and I remember like in the heyday of WoW, particularly like late vanilla and BC, playing every contender to the throne that came out, and they were all
say the big one.
What is the big one? Because I remember the Warhammer MMO being the first one to actually use the moniker of we're going to be the next World of Warcraft.
Oh, is that really war? Oh, yeah, I guess because it was the moniker of war. No, it was oh god, I almost said Ion. Now I've left it. Rift. Yeah, Rift was.
Rift the big. Yeah, they were
Rift was the first kind of good one though. Like Rift was actually pretty decent.
But Rift, all of the ads for Rift, like the in like article ads were "You're not in Azeroth anymore." Yes. I was like, you guys are so stupid. Why would you do that?
I mean, someone had to try it. Like, maybe imagine if it had worked. Imagine it came out and it actually is just better than World of Warcraft and it kills it. Like that, it would have been like rap beef. You would have been like, holy shit, the king is here.
Walks into the boardroom with the whiteboard and what if it works? Underlines works. Damn.
Oh, yeah. Listen, I loved Chloromancer in Rift. I was a big Chloromancer fan in Rift. Most people I know who played Rift only seem to remember Chloromancer. It seems like it was everyone's favorite class in that game. But it's like, it was just such a bold move to try to just like like they even used art, like the Night Elf art in their thing. It was like, bro, your own art isn't even in the ad. You're just using the WoW like box set for the ad itself.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Well, that was the whole thing. And like, I don't think WoW is dead, but with the original Exodus that happened in Shadowlands, the Final Fantasy 14, and now just kind of looking at the landscape now, like, yeah, if you had asked me back in like BC, what's going to kill WoW, like my answer would have been so different than it is now. Cause now we know what happened. Like, no, there's just like slowly like nothing at launch upended it. It was these games like ESO, like Final Fantasy 14, like Guild Wars 2 that just kept continuing on and building a good product, which we probably should have seen that coming. Because an MMO audience, they want to trust the game they're going into is going to stick around, have endgame content worth engaging with, and update at any sort of regular pace.
And 14 is definitely a regular pace.
Yeah,
and Guild Wars and ESO, they've picked up on that too. I feel like 14 taught a lot of those companies how to keep their game in check. You know, I think even WoW probably picked up a decent bit.
Oh, absolutely.
From just 14's tenacity. Yeah,
I would freaking hope so. Yeah, because that was always like my personal little things like, oh, you ruined my favorite class aside with World of Warcraft. That was always my issue with like, can you not figure out how to release your content in a way where we don't have a massive just ditch of nothing for a year and change?
Yeah, I feel like WoW's achieved that. Nowadays,
August is going to be weird. It's gonna get weird, man. A lot of people are saying, I don't like Final Fantasy 14 Dawntrail's story. It's not about me. What if they do? Like, what if War Within comes out and it's like, this is about you and you're in cutscenes? It's gonna be the weirdest content creator YouTube video war I think MMOs have ever seen. The story war of MMOs is gonna be bizarre.
I think it'll be more vitriolic if the War Within story is actually good.
Right?
If it's bad, we're all just going to keep clowning on World of Warcraft's narrative and the status quo will be upheld. But if it's good, there's going to be a bunch of people coming out of the woodwork being like, they're ripping off Final Fantasy 14. And then you're going to have like tribes of 14 players. You're going to have the people who didn't like Dawntrail being like, WoW's better. Ha 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 ha. They're going to be like the Joker. And then, but you're also going to have the group from 14 of folks that don't want to like WoW or don't want to admit that it's good. And they're going to blame. They're just going to accuse WoW of stealing from 14 when it's like all these games steal from each other. They always have. There's nothing new here. But that's where my brain goes. That's where
reminds me of during the Shadowlands Exodus where I saw a meme format. It was just a picture and it was like me going from World of Warcraft to Final Fantasy 14. It was a picture of Heath Ledger's Joker. You want to know how I got these scars? And now it's like the other way around. That's what it'll be for some people if the story shapes up that way.
Yeah. So Kyle said this to me off air, like I think Friday or Thursday last week, and I've been thinking about it nonstop, dude. You were like, what if War Within story's good? Like,
not even that.
Just
like,
imagine what the MMO landscape is going to be like.
If it's just focused on your character, like what a weird dichotomy that'll cause in people who are. I mean, for us, we're barely into it. We're not going to talk about Dawntrail here, but that isn't the case. The big complaint about you not being in it is not the case.
I mean, I will say this though. I feel like WoW's story, because I keep up to it via Noble. like most people probably logically do with the story or the bits. Yeah. Noble is how I keep up with any of what's going on in Warcraft, books, game, otherwise. And I'm just like so beyond caring at anything that's happened in recent years. Like it's just like I can't. I think through like Mists and Draenor and like feel like I can't. But it's just gotten so far from like caring. If War Within can be about your character, but if it's not good, then it's going to be a problem because I haven't seen too much optimism about the content yet, other than the stuff people already like Mythic Plus and raids and whatnot, which have always been W's for a while now.
Like WoW's raids have, in my opinion, more or less been good the whole time. Like I haven't really ever like truly hated a WoW raid.
I don't like the mentality that the devs have making them. The whole it needs to be super hard like week one, and we're gonna like randomly have to tune something because we messed up, and then we're gonna nerf it like every like 2 whatever weeks until like everyone can clear it. And like I hate that they're designed that way. Like just on a fundamental level.
Final Fantasy's whole we made a product, we've beaten it, and it is now yours. It speaks to me on that FromSoft level of like, play within my rules. Here you go. I have made the game.
Same. Yeah, I quite enjoy it. I've never felt like I had the freedom to figure out WoW for myself, because like when I'd show up to raid night, it was like expected. You've already watched the guide, you've already figured this out, all that. Now, if I was in a cutting edge guild that was ahead of anyone making guides, I'm sure that would have been true. But that is like a percent of a percent of a percent in terms of guilds in World of Warcraft. Whereas also just because of the way 14 was built, like I couldn't go through World of Warcraft and play the raids along the way as I leveled. But in 14, because you can just click minimum eye level, silence echo. Now, finding a group, that's streamer privilege. That'll probably be a lot harder for someone if you don't have a community that you can call upon to be like, hey, I want to go in. I need 7 other strangers. We're going in on minimum eye level, no echo. I don't want any answers. I want you to come and suffer with me for a few hours. That's where streamer privilege comes in. But at least it's an option. Like in World of Warcraft, that like just doesn't really exist. You got to go to Classic to have a kind of a simulacrum of what the experience was like when it was current, or get lucky with time walking tuning, which is almost always just effed up, and it's not even close to what it was like when the content was current.
God, it makes me think of what's it called? Season of Discovery with Sunken Temple. How badly that got screwed up. I couldn't believe it. The final boss was like by like a wide margin, not even remotely close to, and not even the final boss. I think it was the second to last boss. Might have been the final boss. It was like by a wide margin unkillable. Like by like 20% of his health bar unkillable. And it was just like, yeah, it was really, really like, but that kind of stuff happens. Like a boss despawning and a mechanic being nerfed by 50% randomly in the middle of like week 1 to me is just like how did you let that happen? You know, like I could understand if it was off by a little bit, maybe you like tried to tune it up. Like a good example. So with 14, Abyssos, the second Savage tier, they over buffed it by like 1% and wrote like a manifesto apologizing.
that tracks, yeah.
For a 1% over, they were like, yeah, normally our dev team, our dev team beats it, and we just assume the player base is better than our dev team, so we buff it a little bit. And this time, I guess our dev team did so well that we ended up over buffing the fight. They were on par with the player base.
This is an apology, right? Like this was written as an apology.
Well,
or
it was
are they
that
just
like
flexing on everyone.
It was a humble flex, but they were essentially saying that over the years our dev team is now performing at a level that is more representative of the player base. So we made that mistake, and so here's what we're gonna do.
That's amazing.
And they were like, we're nerfing it by 1% health.
Man,
I love that.
But it goes back to the finding a good static. It comes back to the expectation. So the expectation of the players of 14 is that fights will be surmountable. They'll be difficult, but you'll be able to clear them because of the way that they developed this game. So even though it is only 1%, it makes sense that was the response, because there's an expectation from the player base. Where you go over to World of Warcraft, and that they've done it that long they've done it that way for so long. That's the expectation of how that game is balanced.
Yeah, it's just crazy. It's just like the dichotomy is nuts. The thing, and I want to know, because I don't pay attention to like ESO if they ever have stuff like that happen, or Guild. Like I don't know, but like I want to know if like what the scales are elsewhere as well, just out of curiosity.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, but yeah, August is going to be weird. I stand it. Yeah, that's a good statement.
August will be
August going to be weird.
But obviously, we should have you back on because you're a wealth of MMO knowledge in general. So thank you for joining us today.
It was fantastic. Yeah, I'm pretty flexible when it comes to making time for things like this, and
awesome.
We'll probably be inviting you onto State of the Realm, and we're flexible at that time too.
So hell yeah. Let's do it.
Yeah. We got a few more things. We want to let you guys play through more, obviously, because you guys play it at just a very set pace.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's a good
way. If we invited you on now, you'd be like, it looks like it's going to be pretty cool.
Yeah.
That would be the end of it.
How about that opening quest, huh? Pretty cool stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, they told me I get to go to 2 different places and I get to pick one. That's
nuts,
crazy.
Right?
You just don't. Well, I'm just set pace. I mean, like some of us just go 18 hours a day.
That's it's a wonderful compliment. I love set pace. That's wonderful. Better than cadence, better than stalling. I like it.
Glacial is usually how it's described around
that
this
also is quite kind, so I appreciate that one too, because glaciers are powerful ancient things.
But this is what happens, Jesse Cox tells you to hurry up enough times, and suddenly you're ahead of him in the MSQ. So,
well, I'll tell you to hurry up. All right. No, but it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on. It was a great chat.
Thanks for coming on, dude. Have a good one.
Right. Bye, everyone.
See ya.
Y'all don't move.
Like that.
Garrett's gonna move because he's.
I'm gonna move.
Yes, he's broken, and I'm just gonna go to this screen here, which should work. This should work.
We got some supers to say thank you to.
Nice.
And then for the forum, are we gonna bring this down and pop up a new stream?
Yes, I already have a stream prepared, so we will head that direction.
Cool. Today was pretty fast and furious. So Kyle and I have had no chance to talk to each other about planning, which is why I don't know the answer to that question already.
I took the children to the dentist.
And I took myself to Kyle's dentist.
Yes, thank you so much for that, dude. dropped off my bag to me. I've had the loudest mechanical keyboard in the world, and I was realizing this morning that if I was sitting here doing this podcast, nope, I need my keyboard.
Use the virtual on-screen keyboard and type with your mouse.
That's what I should have done.
Yeah. Kyle should make half of his face line up with half of Garrett's face. We could do that. That'd be really disturbing.
Oh, you mean like we're we'd have to stay very still. It's hard for me to do.
Yes, absolutely. But some supers came through all that. Bojo, thanks for kicking us off with the super today. I hope the YouTube or the podcast lived up to your expectations. Seemed like you were pretty hyped about today. Luke Murray, we hope you're safe dealing with Hurricane Beryl. So I'm assuming you're somewhere in Texas.
Oh, is that going down in Texas? I hope you're safe.
It has made landfall. Yep. That's a hell of a way to start a Monday, let me tell you.
No, I'm not used to this kind of thing.
You will be.
I will be. Yeah, no, I live in Florida now. I gotta be.
You will be. Matthew Donovan said, podcast series idea based on the opening of this podcast. Bring on 14 creators to talk about anything but 14. Call it sure as shit not talking Final Fantasy 14. I like that. That'd be fun.
Like you get buzzed out every time you even start to compare something to 14.
We would have to really warn guests.
Yes.
Like there will be loud noises if you bring up Final Fantasy 14.
Oh, damn it.
It's the point of the show. We're not trying to be
hard.
rude. It's the gag of the show. Jelani, thanks for the super. My OG 14 channel is on my newer 14 channel. Super chatting from cruise ship, by the way. Oh, damn, that is dedication. Go have a drink on us or pour us. I can't send you money, Jelani. It does. If anything, you send us money for a drink. You get the idea. 500th like, Faye. Oh, thank you. Game changer before the podcast. Be into that. That show is fantastic. Absolutely freaking fantastic. Falls Ventus supered. Red Mage to me has the potential of doing big damage numbers, but because, quote, it's too easy to play or whatever, a lot of big time raiders cast it aside.
I loved having these conversations today. I also love that I didn't know that in some regard. You know, it's the burden of knowledge. Now I'm aware. I like Red Mage a lot. That's a shame. It's fun. It's fun to do flips.
Yeah. Aaron, thanks for the Gemra super. Said, holy cow, just logged in. Hello, Mr. Happy. Going home to Florida, boys. Not sure about that 1,000 degree heat. It was rough this weekend.
It was properly hot out.
I was outside talking to my neighbor for like 5 minutes yesterday, and I had to change my shirt before Katie and I went out. Like, I came back in, and Katie was like, are you okay? And I'm like, I'm fine. I'm just like, I'm disgusting, and I need a water really bad. Yeah, there's no wind. And I wanted a bathing suit, Kyle, so I went to that outdoor outlet mall that's like...
Oh, dear. Yeah.
Exits above you.
That thing has no
light
control.
Light control?
Yeah, like, you know, hangings. It just like lets the sun just beam
mean to
down.
say shade?
Well, it has... If I were to say shade, you would think, no, there's shade because the buildings have edges, Kyle. Come on. So I had to come up with another word that expressed that they could do like hanging business. Because when I was a child in Florida, I grew up here 4 to 8 years old. Like no playgrounds were covered at all. So we go to playgrounds now and we're like, holy shit, look at the structure. There's a thing over the top of the playground.
Okay. All right. I mean, there are awnings on both sides of each side of it, so you can for the most part stay shaded, but you are correct, there's also a much larger section in the middle of all of that is completely unshaded, and it just blasts.
It's tan, so it just blasts you. It just reflects right off the ground into your face.
Yep.
It's not happy.
Yeah, it is. And there was no wind yesterday. It was rough, but I did find a super cute swimsuit.
Congratulations.
Yeah. I look so tan in it. It's like looks like a vintage like off-white. Like it makes me look so much tanner than I actually am. I love
congratulations.
It. It's fantastic. Ellington, wow, damn Cerebral. You must be a local if you know what Ellington is. But yeah, I went to Ellington yesterday. That is the local outlet mall. My runners, my Nikes have finally started to fall apart, Kyle. And that was the main reason I went. Because Katie and I'd like to go running when we're in Key West. I'm like, well, shit, my running shoes are literally disintegrating. So there's a Nike outlet up there, and they had nothing waterproof. So it was a fool's errand.
I'm glad you made it out okay.
Yeah, it's a shame, but I ordered some offline. They'll be here tomorrow. Thank you for the support, everybody. Keeps me healthy. Vivian wanted us to play Monk. Hey, good to see you, Vivian.
No, we were talking about Monk at that time, so
we were in fact playing Monk. Yep. Fallen plays. I know when this one came in because it said the real "I am the manager" moment.
It's wonderful,
MrHappy.
It would have been entirely self-serving, so I avoided asking the question, but I just wanted to be like, so what's it like when someone finds your guide 3 years late and they show up and tell you how wrong you are? Because that's still I have a YouTube channel that's no longer monetized for Here's the Storm strategy. And I will still, on my personal channel, wake up to someone just cursing me out for full paragraphs about how my strat is shit and off meta. And the video's 6 years old.
Good. I'm glad that's your experience. Kura, thanks for the super. Another female character being unnecessarily hated and is the focus of a politically charged MSQ. Welcome back, Stormblood, my favorite expansion. What did people hate Lise in the moment? Because my understanding was that was a streamer way after the fact.
I'm sure,
years after Stormblood.
We're realizing being a part of this one that there is a cycle, and there's always going to be that, and I'm just talking general now, there's always going to be that group who doesn't really have a healthy interaction with a game, who wants to love it again, and says, okay, expansion, you must have these kind of buffs, this kind of storyline, and this, or I'm out. And then they come back, and it's not those exact things they made up in their head would make this perfect experience, when actually they're just burned out, and they just can just be done. Break up. It's okay. So I think I bet you that all happened in the moment. But
okay. Well, Chad is saying there are a lot of people who did not like Lise at the time. I'm wondering, like, I'm sure some of it is people being awful because it's the internet, and you will find every corner under every dark rock.
True and sad.
Variety of person. But I'm curious if it's when you, the player, are less the focus of the expansion. If that is where this starts to creep in from a larger amount of people. Because that's the vague vibe I've been getting from one side of arguments I'm seeing on Twitter. Because again, everything I've seen are people reacting to negative comments, but the negative comment they're reacting to isn't where I can see it. It's not on Twitter. They're not replying. It's not a thread. There's nothing like that. I'm seeing like half of an argument, it feels like.
Absolutely. And there are people who, attempt to navigate those conversations and are curious about the other side and why they feel that, and you end up just finding out that's a cesspool. Okay, there's not an actual argument there. But I said as much as in our stream last week that when you're watching the characters move, it's from your height. It's from your point of view. And there is so much being acknowledged in small moments, particularly involving Wooklamat, that I really like that they're doing. It is so much deeper. And I got to wonder, are people actually even that far? Like, are they missed those things, got as far as we did, and made these huge diatribes? Because if you miss those things, yeah, I guess you could start to think that there's no depth here. But there's a lot going on behind the scenes. And if you think you're not the main character, what the hell was all that on the boat about? What the hell was those longing shots at your own face about? It really seems insane to me.
Yeah. And I realize this is a dangerous conversation for us to be having because we haven't gotten through Dawntrail. We will probably come back around to this.
Absolutely.
Once we've actually gotten through it to see what it is. But yeah. And this isn't me trying to dismiss just like straight up discrimination, like people who like cannot stand to see someone that doesn't represent themselves being the main character in a story. Those people absolutely do exist. It makes me very sad. But I also go, okay, well, those people don't matter because they're shit human beings. Let's have a conversation about the people. Like maybe this didn't hit for other reasons. And the example I always use is the Ghostbusters movie, because there was a lot of really shitty people being shitty towards a bunch of women actors. But I went and saw the movie and I was like, this movie was bad. And I wanted to talk about that movie being bad, but I felt like I didn't want to because there were so many people being discriminatory assholes to actors doing their job.
Right.
That Yeah, and so that's where I come from. That's where I'm coming from right now. Is like because I've got a couple buddies that don't like Lise, and I don't think they're like sexist. They just think the character didn't land for them, and I'm always curious about why. If you come at me and you're like, because if the second I hear Mary Sue, I'm like, cool,
That's
cool, I'm out.
And I think that's why at this current juncture, it's easier to dismiss those comments because they're using phrases that immediately say, you're not looking any deeper. Like, why? Why does it upset you? Well, because it's bad writing. You're like, why is it bad? And they can't go any layers deeper. So you have to therefore dismiss the claim in a court of story critique law.
Yeah. I'm caught the tail end of your statement as I unplugged my I have so much Star Wars trauma, man. I wear so much Star Wars merch, and I have almost 10 times, I think I'm up to 8 or 9 times, worn a Star Wars shirt to Publix and had the cashier start going off about how much The Last Jedi sucks. And I'm just like, I don't care anymore. I don't care. It's been what, like a decade? How long has it been? Almost a decade. Like, move on. Just move on. That is not an interesting personality anymore.
No, it's
we
not.
get it. We get it. So yeah, that's where my head's at. So it's not that I dismiss people being shitty. It's that I unfortunately think shitty people will always be around, and I preferred it when we didn't retweet their insane takes and give them a platform.
Or in the internet, you can have, the wolf in sheep's clothing kind of device develop where someone is coming at you with what seems like a rational argument, and you have to dig for a while to be like, holy shit, like this is not rational at all. And that's frightening and extremely sad. But one thing is for sure, we will go at a pace that we will analyze this whole thing. And
Yes.
It'll happen.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We'll come back around to it. We'll come back around to it. Christian M. Hey, I see that 24 months. Thank you. I was wondering why you were mentioning Batman, but I see you were doing a holy milestone Batman joke. Okay. And Scramble said, hey, Stormblood gave her a new lease on life. I'm sorry, don't be. I love it. Stitch is supered. I think a part of that too, if you don't like Wook's character archetype, being exposed to it so much won't help. Well, yeah, like you may just not be into that archetype. Like I saw someone go by where it's just, I just think she's loud. And I'm like, okay, well, that's probably not gonna get better. Seems like the type of character that will probably stay at a high volume. So yeah, I can understand that. That was why Katie just noped out of Delicious in Dungeon.
Oh, we all have those.
So, I have different strokes for different folks. But that's what I'm interested. That's what I'm going to have in my head kind of during it is like, do I feel I'm enough of a player in the narrative of this game? That's something I'm curious about because I've seen that being batted around. And I'm curious if I think that's an accurate assessment or critique.
And that's where I find a lot of joy, honestly, because that is a fascinating conversation. And then we're going to layer on top of it for an MMO. The game that you will play, be so invested in yourself that you stick around and keep playing because there's stuff to do. Like, that is so crazy. And it's a fascinating, like, literary exploration to do.
Yeah. Zico, thanks for super. My reaction to Wook after beating the game was that she's like my little sister. I love her, but she drives me up a wall. Valid. Also, so is Vivian, who simply supered, I like big women.
Oh, so it's a many an upvote, I see.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, a lot of people agree with Vivian here. I'm gonna add a thumbs up to that. Where is it? Where'd it go?
I don't think we can. We can heart it. We can heart it on our end.
I can't thumbs up.
We can't thumbs up.
Fine.
As
There's
the streamer. Yeah. All we can do is give a heart to that.
Falls super to someone finished MSQ recently. Lamont is very interesting. It's fun to watch her grow and see how the warrior light is an influence on her. That's how I figure they're going.
You don't just like
with that character here.
Dump all on the table and say, watch us do nothing with these pieces. There are a lot of pieces.
I stand by what I said on Thursday night, where I was like, she's the character that has somewhere to go, that hasn't accomplished a lot, that could try and, encapsulate that new adventure feeling for this start of a new arc. So.
Not the play. We're going to go do the super form. I've got other stuff to say over there. That we continue this conversation over there. But
okay, well, can we thank Kura, who said I also like Big Woman?
Absolutely. Wait, did that get more?
Can we thank them?
You're also got more upvotes? That's not right. Everyone go back and re-upvote Vivian there. That's not fair that they also got more.
It's a thumbs up. Yeah, it's a thumbs up.
Yeah. But both got a heart from us, so it's okay.
An adventure that's newfound. Exactly, yeah. Alex. See, you get it. All right, cool. All right, so we're going to bring this stream down. We're going to fire up a new one for the Super Forum. Yep. You should all go join us there. I desperately need to use the restroom, so I'm going to step away for a sec, Kyle.
We're going to be it says 3:30, and that's probably about accurate. So here's a link for you. Go there. That's where we're going. We'll see you there very shortly.
I can't comment on that yet. Omen. But I'm happy to comment on it when I get through Dawntrail. Thanks for the super.
Hold on, I'm pretending to read. Sorry, hang on. I need to actually read. I'll read that and I will respond to it on the super forum. That's what I'm gonna do. I'll see you over there.
Oh, we missed Dean's? Clear the MSQ, and for everything I disliked about Dawntrail, there were 5 I loved. Hyped you guys get to experience it. I mean, I haven't liked every moment of every MSQ, period. So that doesn't surprise me to hear.
See you there soon. Bye.